kids are crazy for, Cthulhu. Start your morning madness with a bowl of morning happiness.
Cthulhu sale is ongoing now. You will take part. Save up to 33% off gem bundles. You will take part.
Crazy crispity, crazy crunchity, crazy crunch.
Select chests up to 50% off. You will take part. Boosters, avatars, wards, and more up to 50% off. You will take part. Party up with up to 3 times favor. Worshippers and XP. You will take part. This is your duty.
Crazy Cthulhu-y. Cthulhu. Surgeon General's warning, Cthulhu's are not of this world and should not be ingested by children or adults over the age of 80. Gems are not included as a prize because Cthulhu's are not real. Reality is meaningless, time is a construct. They not all hope when you ingest Cthulhu's. Use as directed, part of balanced breakfast. For the crispity, crunchity, crazy crunch, get cuckoo with Cthulhu.
You will take part.
Of a balanced breakfast.
Can we take a commercial break?
Morning, Smite fans, and welcome to Week 4, Day 2 of the Smite Challenger Circuit. We've got a pretty fun round of games coming up your guys' way today with the Tiburones versus Sleekness. But before we get into all of that, we got to do a little assessment here. Mifflin's going to be joining me for this beautiful morning of Smite Challenger Circuit. And as always, Mifflin, you have to appreciate the cusp of talent that we are about to witness here today.
Why'd you
with
say
the
it
Smite
like
Challenger
that?
Circuit. What do you mean?
The cusp of talent.
Because you were just gassing up Team Sleekness
I
prior
was.
to us going live.
I was.
And because of that, I think it's only fair that we get a more accurate representation of the things that actually go through your brain in terms of what these teams are capable of.
Well, you want me to break down the team? Don't we have like a schedule or like
We
standings?
could go into the schedule, the standings, but
There
I
it is.
wanted to get your assessment first, Miff. You're supposed to. That's where you drop the quips, man.
The
but
quips? Oh,
that's
these
fair.
guys
That's
are
fair.
sick.
Like I mentioned, though, we do have Tiburones versus Sleekness. That's going to be the set that Mifflin and I are going to cover with you guys here today
Poggers.
on this beautiful morning. After that, though, got to keep in mind we have some future SCC stats coming up. We're going to head back into Europe for tomorrow with Elysium versus Team Joystick. Always a fun time watching Adapting. And that Cheerio team definitely been on the up and up. And then, of course, we're going to come back over to NA and close things out with another beautiful day of EU SCC. As the standings indicate, Winter Dogs and Herculean Hooves right now tied for first. Pretty important set, though, for Sleekness and Tiburones. I'd say a little bit more hinging for Sleekness, given the fact that they have one win already, Mifflin. So, obviously, trying to just get that one up over the Sturdy Artisans, start themselves off in the right way this weekend.
Fun fact for the standings of both regions: if Sleekness does win today, it'd be the exact same standings as EU. I mean, that's kind of cool. I don't know.
A pretty similar pattern. Yeah, it is interesting how that actually managed to work out, because I guess what you're really trying to get at is the fact that there tends to be a little bit more of a breakaway at times with some of the teams. I guess that's where you can kind of tell where the shifted, like, I don't want to say the talent, because I think that every team kind of has a lot of potential to really rise up the standings, but you get a better indication at least of which teams have more of a grasp on the current competitive meta, because you have to expect some differences between the Smite Pro League and the Challenger level.
Yeah, these guys have their own identities and their own metas that they like to play at the SCC level. Sometimes we see things like just aggressive lock-ins, Omanas throughout, and then, I don't know, Sylvanas jungles occasionally as well. And in the SPL, you're generally not going to see picks like that. But I'm pretty excited for this set here today, Taco, and I think maybe now you want me to break down the teams?
Okay, this might be the better time to do it, but we'll get things started off talking about Sleekness. I think that this is a team that has certainly started to make some waves here, and up against the Tiburones, I don't think that they're looking to tread lightly by any means. Some of the more standout names here, I think, probably be looking towards Oath and Oceans. I think that Oceans, especially having once been in the Smite Pro League, this is definitely a lot of flexibility, I would say, in terms of the support role, but so much of this meta has hinged upon the mid and jungle aspect.
Yeah, I mean, jungle. You're going to call it jungle? That's what we're hinging on right now? Dude, no way.
Budget support too?
Yeah, budget support too. So I'd say mid and support, but maybe ADC because their builds are super cheap and strong. But you're right to bring up Oceans as a player, and speaking of ADCs, did used to play that at the SPL level. Now going to be playing support for Sleekness, and He has asked me on multiple occasions in the Twitter DMs, in the Discord DMs, he said, Mifflin, if you're ever casting one of my sets, please say that I'm creating space, I'm burning cooldowns, and I'm CCing enemies. So look out for that here today, chat. I'm going to say all those things about Oceans, probably.
Well, you technically already just said all 3 of those things, so I'd say that that's a mission accomplished on your end.
Oh, cool. So I can actually tell the truth when he's like dropping a fat into?
Possibly. I think you still have to talk about that. Those are zoning feeds, because it keeps everybody else on his team away from that particular area, and they're like, ooh, he just died, so we're going to avoid that. Yeah, that's exactly how these things work. But of course, like we mentioned, their competition is going to be the Tiburones de Tijuana. You know, these guys like to have some fun, if the name hasn't already said that about this roster. And again, a couple of familiar faces, I would say, with this Tiburones roster, looking mostly the way of Coat Baby, Heed. I think that these are definitely some familiar names as far as this competitor aspect in the challenger circuit is concerned.
Not to sleep on Spreen, Renjaru, and Blugan as well. These guys have all been playing at the SCC level for an incredibly long time, and I think that it's really indicative of their skill level that they've been able to maintain that SCC status, considering as the years have gone on, the SCC has been stacked up with a lot of SPL talent.
Yeah.
A lot of players out there just kind of hanging around at this level as they don't want to take it to the next level. You know, they're in college, they're pursuing other passions, so they play here instead of having to come out to LANs. And well, despite all that, Tiburones is still finding a good deal of success here inside of the SCC, and I think it's this guy on your screen right now, Griff, has been looking very good.
And as far as these 2 teams are concerned, Mifflin, what do you think are going to be some of the more important win conditions for today? Because as the standings indicated, unfortunately for Tiburones, they've definitely had some struggles so far. But again, we are only in week 4 right now for the Smite Challenger circuit. So finding yourself 2 sets down, while yes, it can be a little bit of a bummer, at the same time, you have to expect that these teams are definitely capable of more. And fortunately for us, we actually get to head right into the picks and bans for the Smite Challenger circuit. Game number 1 between Tiburones and Sleekness, and Tiburones, as you can see, piloting first pick position. So Mifflin, again, I ask you, what do you think are some of the win conditions surrounding this Tiburones roster? Like, what is it that they need to do to really find that first set victory?
Generally, I like to see them play that early game aggression style when they're able to utilize that jungle and just get really proactive. I'm talking about the Erlang Shens, the Osirises, the Gilgameshes, things along those lines. Now that I say it out loud, that's kind of just generally what everybody's been doing out of the jungle as far as early aggression goes. But I think it's if everyone's doing it, there's a reason for it. And well, Tiburones, as the bans have rolled through here, have got a good selection of junglers they could look towards, or even potentially mid laners. Tiamat, the top tier, taken off the table, but Morgan Le Fay, Persephone still available.
And how do you feel about seeing Sleekness actually prioritize banning away that Raijin? Because we've been seeing so much Raijin dominance as far as the Smite Pro level is concerned, but here in the Challenger circuit, it seems as though these guys, they don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, Raijin is just an incredibly strong pick. I think Paul said it best in the interview yesterday. He's just a top tier. He's just really far up there. He's got great utility. His damage output is ridiculous. He's one of the best applicators of Divine Ruin. And, well, he's got Engage for your team from max range if you want to use the Tycho Drum as a taunt. Or he's got Disengage if you want to use it as Fear. Or he's just got a Tactical Nuke if you're doing, like, damage.
Well, for Sleekness, their responses to that Cyrus is actually going to be the Morgan Le Fay and the Gilgamesh, with so much of that support emphasis and the front line in general being stripped away by those Tiburones bans. That leaves Sleekness open to one or the other in terms of that Gilgamesh-Osiris debate. And Mifflin, you kind of made a face when you saw that Morgan slide through, paired alongside of the Camazots and Osiris. How do you feel about this Tiburones top 3 so far?
I mean, I hate quoting aggro, but I'm gonna quote aggro. If you're picking Camazots in your top 3, you're kind of like throwing away a little bit of your picks because he's not really finding CC. You're not really a damage-focused role anymore in the jungle because you are support 2.0, which means that you kind of want to be the engage for your squad. If Camazots pulls ahead early, he still does like Season 7 Camazot stuff. It's one of the highest DPS junglers in the game as far as abilities go. So he does have that capacity, and he's got decent dive into Morgan Le Fay, but he's not Gilgamesh. He's not exactly what an Osiris brings. So now Osiris could be headed over into the Soul Lane, could be Camazot Soul. There is flex potential. I think I'd probably prefer to see Osiris jungle just because he does more the majority of the time in the jungle, but Camazot solo kind of gets bodied by some certain picks. We'll see. We'll see how the Sharks round out this draft.
It does seem a little bit more, though, as if they're trying to utilize this double Camazot's ultimate, especially having taken that Morgan in the third pick position. Fields of Love does provide a little bit of crowd control, though. I know that that was definitely something that you were kind of asking for, given that there doesn't really seem to be a ton of control currently from this Tiburones top 3, but rounding things off with a Sobek, do you believe that that's going to be enough of both peel and initiation to kind of balance things out here?
I think it can be. The Tiburones are very much looking for an early game lead. If they're able to hit the ground running, then Sobek's really all the engage you need. A Pluck's going to kill just about anybody with a damage backing of the Morrigan and Camazots, but if you fall behind, well, Sobek can't peel and engage and disengage. You can't act as that utility tool for your team because you're really lacking in late game frontline presence. I know Osiris is a little bit tanky, but inside of the late game, he doesn't really generate enough threat, I think, as a frontliner.
Well, we'll get a chance to get a little bit more insight as to how effective this early game is really going to be for the Tiburones. I do like the fact, though, that you talk about how much of the early game is going to be the focal point here out of the Tiburones, because I'm right there with you, Miff. I think that this composition leaves very little wiggle room for, I guess, game delays. You want to close it out early.
Yeah, I mean, your late game win condition is the Morrigan, who does have one-shot potential on some of these immobile gods on the side of Sleekness. If you ever catch the other Morgan, just Morgan, LaFay, kind of slipping inside of the jungle, you can one-tap her legitimately. Even Heimdall, pretty easy to shut down, but Heimdall also has the Gallarhorn to catch out that stealth. It's very easy. If you ever played Team Fortress 2, fans at home, that's kind of the the classic matchup. You got the Spy versus the Pyro. That's
another
what Gallarhorn
game advertisement, Mifflin, during my Smite Challenger circuit.
My bad. Don't play that game. Instead, play Smite. Let me emphasize that, but that is generally how the matchup works out.
Fair enough. But breaking it down a little bit further, inside of that duo lane specifically, I know that Sleekness opted for the Rom Chernobog bans, and seeing Bro with the Heimdall, as far as that direct Heimdall-Cupid matchup is concerned, is the Bifrost really going to be all that threatened by a lone Fields of Love?
I mean, it can be stopped, to be sure, but Bede's out of it, or generally just use that ultimate for the CC immunity on Heimdall to just walk out of it that way. So it's not a great matchup for Cupid, but it's not a bad one either.
And Bro trying to be as safe as possible. Going to go ahead and toot that Gallarhorn just to make sure he doesn't get any further, I guess, commitment to him. But Renjar seems totally content. Just get a little bit of poke damage off with the Heart Bomb, and that'll be something to keep an eye out for. Cope Baby with this Sobek is going to be looking for all of the initiation just about, Mifflin.
Yeah, it's such a classic kill lane that the Sharks have got for themselves here. Sobek and Cupid have been running it down the long lane for like, I don't know, 6 years now. Plucking a Heart Bomb has a lot of kill pressure on it, especially on gods like Ymir, who doesn't really have any way to escape out. I mean, if anyone's going to be struggling inside of the long lane, it is likely going to be the Frost Giant. Not really Dude Man Bro, as he is playing one of the safest hunters in the game.
How do you feel about that Ymir factor, though? Because Oceans could always be able to find nice walls to basically prevent the follow-up, because you can get the Pluck off, but you can also have your Pluck completely blocked by a well-placed Ymir wall, and I would definitely say that Oceans is certainly competent at doing that. And actually, we got some action going on in the solo lane. It's going to be Bluegan followed up by Heat. Thought he was going to get the party started, but it's going to be Chronic having to retreat to tower with his jungler.
Early rotations to the solo lane from both teams here, trying to establish some sort of pressure on the map, and we see that a lot more at the SCC level, these solo lane ganks, because there's not a lot of opportunity cost to it. If you go to the solo lane and you don't find a kill, you immediately fall back, and there is a ton of farm for your jungler on this side of the map. Whereas you go to the duo lane, you mess up your gank, or you do get a gank and you don't even get the kill for yourself as the jungler, you're probably falling behind.
Realistically speaking, though, what were actually the odds, you would say, of Oath managing to come out on top with a pick there onto Heat? Because Osiris pretty much topped off as far as the HP department is concerned, and you know that Bluegan's going to be lurking as well, very likely, if Oath is on that side of the map, as most of these players tend to do keep an eye on their minimaps.
Well, I think Oath is kind of hedging his bet, saying that Bluegan likely isn't in range to follow up immediately, and Oath wants to get involved before that ultimate becomes available to Osiris. Cope caught out a little bit in the jungle here. Unfortunate wall for Oceans. Means that he's going to go ahead and walk out of there with his life. Had Bluegan not been inside of the solo lane right there, Oath with Mannequin Scepter and early damage and great CC lockdown between both Gilgamesh and King Arthur, I think has decent kill potential on an Osiris that doesn't have his ult.
And as far as the King Arthur-Osiris matchup is concerned in general, that's a fairly even trade-out, right, as far as poke is concerned. I don't really... Would you say that you would expect a solo kill to happen in that lane?
If we were going to see a solo kill, we'd have seen it already, right? I mean, once these both tick over towards level 5, they both gain a ton of survivability. It seems like both of them were looking for a little bit of early aggression, fighter mass selection for both Heed and Chronic inside of this lane, but now that we're starting to look at some defense getting picked up, specifically by Heed, I think that's kind of spells the end of the 1v1 potential. If we see someone die, he's either off a rotation or a gank.
What's interesting, though, is it appears as if Chronic has just the slightest experience difference over Heed right now, but as far as the gold is concerned, things are starting to break away a little bit more so for Tiburones. Obviously, 600, 700 gold, it's nothing to get too excited about just yet, but over time, this could definitely amount to more, and it kind of goes to show that as far as the mid lane is concerned, Spreen, relatively effective at just kind of restricting Nehu and their mobility.
Yeah, it's actually a very impressive amount of gold to have this early Spreen cut out.
Oath is just wanting to take over right now.
Out,
Spreen, he's going to have to use the Changeling, and it is the Camazot's transformation, but awkward spot here for sure for the Tiburones. Cope Baby trying to do what he can. Late beads from Oceans means that there's a potential for a turnaround, but Oath, Nehu still sticking by. They're not going to allow any further commitment. Cope Baby, he's going lurking in the waters. He wants this on Blugin, and Blugin wants his head straight into the Camazot's bat out of hell, and finally Ocean's going to wind up falling. Purification beads not going to make a difference, and sure enough, Tiburones, this is exactly what you were asking for, Mifflin. They had to be the aggressors early on.
They did, but they weren't forced to be the aggressors there. It was Sleekness going for a red buff invade, putting them out of position on the Tiburones side of the map, and immediately we see Oceans drop a fat old boosh beads and gets caught out for it. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side, maybe I was wrong, Heed in a little bit of trouble, but Lord of the Afterlife going to get you out of there scot-free, meaning that now we could see another rotation from Oath over to the Soul lane, but I don't know. He's got a good deal of HP building back up thanks to the Chalice. Might be a missed opportunity on this gank.
When you see a response like that from the Tiburones, though, because, again, it was Sleekness that were trying to be proactive in terms of looking for a red buff invade. And do you think that that commitment was solely because of the fact that Oceans was late on the purification beads, or do you think that it's just, hey, we recognize this Amir is pretty far up here, we can definitely catch this guy before he makes it somewhere safe on the map?
Yeah, I think if Oceans beads properly, he's probably out of there scot-free. I mean, the rest of his team was surrounded by him. The only reason he gets isolated is because of that pluck. The rest of his boys kind of walk away and leave him there. And Cope had the opportunity to look for another pluck there, but nobody really in range to follow up. And Oceans still doesn't have those beads. It's going to be another minute or so until that cooldown is available to him. And he's only got about 8 stacks on the Thieves as well. So I want to see the Sharks keep up this pressure on the Ymir.
And as far as Sleekness is concerned, they could potentially be looking to revisit that red buff. Even though they lost their support in the process, it still says a lot when they're willing to be that aggressive. Heat, on the other hand, Lord of the Afterlife forward into Chronic. Seems as though he really wants to take that Totem of Coup for himself. And with Blugan nearby, it just seemed as though Sleekness not going to fall for the bait, or at least Chronic won't fall for the bait of getting ganked by this Camazotz in the jungle. He doesn't even have vision on that side of the map, kind of just knows better, like, hey, this guy's Lord of the Afterlifing for a reason.
Yeah, meanwhile, on the left-hand side, Cope forced to use the Lurking in the Waters to defend his own red buff. Spreen, credit for that one, does get the solo farm, and that means that no split for Cope Baby. Going to keep him about even with Oceans. Oceans may be benefiting from a half-level lead, but attempted speed buff invade. We don't see this too often.
And now Cope Baby going to get hit by the freeze already. A nice wall, but it's just trying to defend his speed, and he will be successful in the process. But now Blugan on the escape. Doesn't have that leash to get away, but will ult with the bat out of hell to escape the drop kick from Oath. Spreen also rotating over just to further ensure, but now it's a pluck onto Nehu, and he could be in some real trouble here.
He could be. Beads are a little bit late. Goes immediately in the ultimate for some CC immunity. Jukes out everything from Spreen, but maybe not the bat out of hell.
Bat out of hell might get the job done, and in fact, it's still going to be a trade out though. Nehu, understanding, just barely managing to luck out there. Cope Baby not wanting to take that final tower shot. Might have been a little oversight there from the Croc. And Nehu definitely counting his lucky stars for that one, because Originally, I think he had Blugan dead to rights from the tower. Cope Baby made the right play. Just so unfortunate that he didn't sit underneath that T1 tower long enough to actually tank the shot for his jungler.
Yeah, Cope just
excuse me,
he
his
didn't want to
mid
take any of that damage. Yeah, that was Changeling turning into the bat out of hell. But yeah, I think an 80% HP Sobek probably could have taken at least one more tower shot. But micro plays like that are pretty easy to make mistakes on. And at the end of the day, the Sharks still coming out pretty handily ahead. 2,000 gold at the 9-minute mark. That's wild.
He was leashed on it, and I think it might have just been one of those brief stepped out of tower without realizing it moments, because it looked as though he was trying to position to avoid any sort of follow-up freeze from Ocean so that he wouldn't also be committed on. But it is definitely still a little bit unfortunate there. The Morgan Le Fay gets her hands dirty as well. But a nice lead for Spreen. Both the kills so far from Tiburones, definitely making use of this Camazotz transformation very early on.
It's just so much survivability. Turning into Camazotz is essentially saying, hey, I don't really need my ult right now, but I would love to have another Aegis, and an Aegis that is essentially a Heavenly at the same time. Chronic cut out on the right-hand side. Nice pluck from Cope.
And it's going to be Spreen with the rotation in. 4 members, but they're all from Tiburones, and it's Spreen with his 3rd kill of the game. Chronic just evaporated, and the fort going to be taken as well here by Blugan. No issues whatsoever for this Camazotz. All that self-sustained to solo it out. And now Heed, a real chance to try and establish a pretty hefty lead here in that solo lane. He's going to get to proxy for free as well. So a double whammy essentially for Chronic, because you have to remember, he doesn't have that teleport to get back to lane as quick as possible. He's definitely going to miss out on 1, possibly even 2 waves now of farm, and that tower is going to take some blows in the process too.
It will. I mean, Chronic also goes for the more team fight oriented build, goes for the sovereignty instead of the mystical mail, so he's going to have a significant advantage in the 1v1 thanks to his itemization, not just the lead. But Taco, this is the first time we've casted together. I didn't realize you're a Forp person. Are you a Forp gorper?
I've always been a Forp gorper.
You're
yes.
a Forp gorper. That's, come on, man.
I've been indoctrinated by the bolts.
The bolts are Forp gorpers.
Yes.
God bless. I mean, Gold Fury Scorp, Fire Scorp, it
That's
just
so
sounds
many
better.
words.
Who cares?
I say
It's like
1.
half second.
I say 1 versus 3. I'm
You
going
only
to
have
go
to
for
say
the
it 1 time
and
per
Tiburones, they get the Gold Fury for free here, Mifflin. This whole time that you're trying to keep me distracted. Tiburones, they've had Sleekness distracted, and it's incredible, really, that they just completely get away with a crime, essentially. No one to contest on that Gold Fury. Mifflin, how does that even happen?
Well, they got a lot of pressure on the right-hand side and then immediately rotated over towards the left, and it seemed like Sleekness, a little bit of sleep at the wheel. They don't really have the greatest fight in potential from their mid lane on their own, and Nehu seemed to be the only one who was really in any position to put up a defense. And Morgan Le Fay, not exactly a great frontliner, does have 25% movement speed, but that's it.
Cope Baby, he wants Chronic's head again. He's going to get plucked right back in.
The boys.
But this time, he's got some backup. Oath going to drop kick Heat away from his solo laner, but of course, the rotation in from Spring going to force the blink out of this King Arthur. Ocean's now under heavy fire, plucked back inwards. A nice wins to Shamas to try and delay, but the freeze going to be off the mark, just off to the side. Blugan gets credit for Ocean's. Bat out of hell expended as well. Meanwhile, solo kill in the duo lane. Renjaru says, get out of here. This is my lane. Dude, man, bro, absolutely flawless on the side lane victories here for Tiburones.
Yeah, the Sharks are starting to run away with this one, Taco. 3,000, maybe closer to 4,000 gold lead. And Nehu, I don't think you can stand there, bud. Oh, okay.
Oh, I think Nehu said...
Yeah, he can stand there.
He said, Mifflin, I need you to shut up real quick because...
Did he say that?
Yeah, it was word for word.
Man, I
have the voice comms as we speak, and Nehu just wanted to put you in your place right quick, and Blugan as well. Blugan, a little over ambitious there, looking for more after the fact, but I do respect the idea, because when you find pressure picks like they have been against the frontlining members of Sleekness, it does open the doorway. Cope Baby, though, he's going to get caught up by a nice wall of freeze, total surround, collapse, dropkick, not going to connect, though, because of the tail whip, and Cope Baby's out of there.
He's walking out. And you know what? To be fair, on that engagement inside the jungle where Nehu finds the turnaround kill, Blugan did miss everything, by the way. He missed Screech and Vampiric Bats, and he doesn't jump out of the damage.
He was...
So maybe, I'm just saying, maybe Nehu shouldn't have stood there unless he's just calling out the misplay from Blugan.
Morgan Le Fay is very beautiful, okay? And Camazotz just He didn't want to hit a creature so divine. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I see what you're saying, and I had not taken that into account, and I will in the future. 4,000 gold in favor of the Sharks so far, and the Order side team has got free reign of the map, I'd say, at this point. They could go over immediately towards this Pyromancer and try and force an engagement onto Sleekness, or force Sleekness to make a difficult decision. Do we put up a defense here, or do we wait it out a little bit longer? At this point in the game, 14 minutes in, with the gold lead as it is, I think Sleekness can't let anything else slip. They are bleeding out quickly, and they need to find some sort of return.
Well, they might be able to find a return on the Coat Baby. He got out once before, but a nice wall from Ocean's going to ensure the pluck won't get away just yet. Oath, on the other hand, though, he's going to be forced back. Blugan just delivering damage. Not going to be a miss on those vampiric bats. And Coat Baby, one more time, just barely going to wiggle his way out of there. Chronic, on the other hand, he's closed the gap somewhat as far as the experience is concerned, but this tower is looking like a goner if any more time goes on. Ocean's even trying to help alleviate some of this pressure, but I don't know how much longer this T1's really going to be left standing, Mifflin.
Unfortunate for Sleekness there. They are able to force out Cope, and generally when a team is even, just forcing someone back to base is an opportunity to look at these neutral objectives. But with this deficit, okay, we forced Cope back. We're still 5,000 gold down. Maybe we don't force a Pyro.
Ocean's another miss breeze, and that's going to be a plug in into possibly his death here. Vampiric Bats for the slow, and Blugan gets credit for another kill onto this Amir. Frost Giant not having a good time about it. And that's some of the immobility you were mentioning, Mifflin, when you saw those initial picks and bans phase go down. Ocean certainly 2 levels behind now. Coat Baby on that Sobek support, and the damage isn't done just yet. Sleekness still trying to respond, but it's Tiburones who are surrounding Nehu.
Nehu forced to use the beads and the old Aegis there to escape this situation, but he puts himself in a poor position.
A nice turnaround, though. Doomman Bro going to collect his first kill of the game onto Heat. Solo laner finally getting shut down here. Spreen, on the other hand, Aegis expended on this Cupid. The dash away is going to buy him some time, so the Pyromancer does wind up falling here in favor of Tiburones, but with Primal Fury due to respawn any second now, and Chronic spotting out. Spreen, he's got to be careful. He's got the hearts to heal just a bit, but still not looking tanky enough to actually deal with this Primal Fury, and backing as late as he's about to. Renjaru going to lose both of his relics now, or excuse me, just the Purification Beads for the time being. And it's going to be a Primal Fury pool, actually, for Sleekness. This could be enough to close the gap. Doesn't seem as though Tiburones are actually in position to contest, and I thought initially that it was Renjaru that lost his Aegis over by that Pyromancer quarrel. It was actually Spreen with that Changeling transformation. Always fun with Morgan in the game.
Yeah, it's so hard to keep track. Not just Morgan, but Morgan Le Fay as well. So we got that double.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah, we got the visual and audible mix-ups here inside of this match. But so far, the Sharks still able to maintain their lead despite slipping up a little bit around these engagements. Still around 4,500 in the lead as far as gold goes. Experience across the board generally in their favor as well. We got a 2-level lead in support, 2-level in the hunter role, 1 level inside of the jungle and inside of the soul lane respectively. So the Sharks, despite falling a little bit behind insofar as neutral objectives, still have a good deal of pressure.
Ooh, ult inwards from Doomman Bro. He gets Fields of Love and has no concern because he knew Oceans was right behind him, but the wall is going to be just short. Renjaru dashing away to freedom yet again, and with 4 members of the Tiburones currently lurking on the duo side of the map, it's definitely in Sleekness' best interest to not engage any further up against this Cupid, but keep in mind, Renjaru still without those purification beads for another 70 seconds or so. The problem, Mifflin, Ocean's still at level 11, and without that secondary relic, I can't help but feel like Sleekness is missing a good bit of initiation. I'd imagine that he wants something along the lines of a blink or just some kind of aggressive team fighting relic.
Yeah, might go for the Frenzy, could even potentially look towards the Heavenly Sprint if he's worried about these Fields of Loves inside of the team fight engagement, but I gotta agree, Oceans is a major weak point right now for this composition, generally because he's not even tanky yet. I mean, Cloak just now getting picked up, Sovereignty already purchased, doesn't really match up to the Pridwin that Cope's bringing in, the defense inside of the passive that Sobek just has inherently as well. Oceans is wet paper inside of these engagements. If he gets plucked and he's late on the beads, I don't care how many members of the Sharks are there, probably going to kill him.
That is painful. Blugan just walks right up, a quick little vampiric toss out, and he'll steal away the Scorpion that Sleekness had been working on. Coat Baby will get frozen in place, but no real follow-up from Sleekness, so the Croc just hanging out, essentially, in the mid lane, and everybody's sitting on level 17, and it's going to be Renjaru sent to Niflheim as Doomambro will cleanse the Heart Bomb stun. He wants to get his revenge on this Cupid, but a nice dash away, and it's going to be Doomambro having to retreat Renjaru. That egg is saving his life. Purification Beach just now coming up as well. A good attempt, I would say, out of the Heimdallr here, knowing that Renjaru's beads were still on cooldown, but simply not enough.
I am surprised to see him use the beads there. I don't know if that's necessarily necessary.
Yeah, he
for
was gone.
Doom
He was
Man,
never
bro.
going to get impacted.
No,
but-
yeah, I mean, but, you know, it's fine. At the end of the day, just lose out on a little bit of that relic. Nehu, though, might lose out on his life.
And Nehu, he's trying to stay underneath the safety of his T1 and T2 towers, hoping that his team's going to be able to respond in time. And Oath's presence seems to be the difference maker here, as Nehu does
Cope.
make it back to his tower. Cope Baby slammed into the wall from the dropkick and taking the tower shot for good measure. Oaths wins this from Mosh. Might have been a little bit of overkill here, but it's about sending a message sometimes in Oath. He's letting Cope Baby know, not my mid laner.
Man, Sleekness is just waiting for the Sharks to make mistakes, and the Sharks are making mistakes. It's generally working out for them now. Cope, for dead for about 20 seconds into the grayscale screen, means that Sleekness has a pretty decent opportunity here to try and find something on the map. If not this tier 1 tower, at least the Pyromancer, as it's going to be respawning very shortly. But the Chaos team is healthy, and once Oath rejoins them, got to think this tower's days are numbered.
And Cope Baby, he's up though in about 5 seconds, and I guess more so closer to 15. T1 tower folding fairly fast though. A nice wall from Ocean's going to make it even easier for the Tiburones to be zoned out there, so Sleekness collects their prize of that pick onto Cope with some nice opening of the map pressure. Pyromancer just now respawning in Mifflin. We are rapidly approaching that point of team fights that could lead to a game end.
Yeah, this Fire Giant is now on the menu 20 minutes in, and the Sharks pick up the Pyromancer for themselves despite not having the pressure coming into this engagement. Sleekness, after stripping away the tier 1 tower, immediately disengaged, scatter to the wind, nobody together, and that opens up the door for the Order team to find a little bit on the map. But I gotta agree, this Fire Giant should be where their team, each of these teams is looking in the very near future. Maybe the Oni Fury first, just to split up the map, and then go for that old OG sanguine play of, all right, well, they've shown themselves on the left because they have to deal with these Oni waves. Let's head over to the Fire Giant now. And it seems to be the strategy here. Sleekness establishing the defensive positioning very early.
But Bluegan, he's able to recognize that, hey, Oni Fury spawning, we just let these guys take the Primal Fury, and to be fair, I would argue that Primal definitely has its benefits here for Sleekness, especially since it's going to give them that bonus damage against future objectives. And considering the fact that we're seeing a pretty big difference between these two Hunter builds, Doomambro a little bit more focused on trying to eliminate that front line out of this Osiris and Sobek. Meanwhile, Renjaru, he is all crit for the most part. Doesn't have any stacks just yet in that range, which that would be the most ideal position is for him to find at least 3-4 stacks to really get the crits rolling here, but does have the Wind Demon, so about 10% penetration, but my concern is that Tiburones, they've got more than enough to shred this Oni Fury, and Sleekness, they can't afford to let it be pulled. They're going to have to get a little bit aggressive here.
They have to. It's going to be Oceans working his way in first, and that's the blink in there.
And that's going to be a Tiburones taking the Oni Fury, but it's the fight after the fact that Sleekness are after. Heat in some trouble, a nice wall. Cope Baby going to be trapped for the time being, lurking in the waters. Meanwhile, Spring getting committed to by Oath. He's going to get out, though, and Oath blown up in a second by Renjaru. All the while, Heed running for his life now against the entirety of Sleekness. A good blink away, and it's not just the Oni Fury. Right now, it's looking like Tiburones are going to escape with their lives, too.
Ocean still on the chase, but can't use the wall as Osiris is incorporeal. Freeze, though, will ring true. Dude, man, bro. Credit for the kill this time around, but Tiburones find themselves the Gold Fury. They find a kill, and they find a little bit more on the map. Sleekness,
no.
I don't know. Tier 2 tower for Fire Giant? Feels like a good trade.
No. Sleekness. They are falling for the trap. Hook, line, and sinker here. Tiburones, they not only get the Oni Fury, there is no one to contest. There is no vision on this FG. And they've got Renjaru stacked up with the crits easily enough. Tiburones take down the Fire Giant as well as that FG. Granted, Sleekness do get that T2 tower, Mifflin, but if we're just comparing things outright, that is a Tiburones W all day long. The only one they lost in the process was their solo laner.
Yeah, that is a great trade for the Sharks so far. I'd argue that had Sleekness kept up the push and potentially stepped into the Phoenix, maybe that's a slightly more even trade. I'm probably still favoring the Sharks there just because of how many towers are still in the map to be acquired, how much gold is still available out there. The Sharks, I think, don't even really need to step into a Phoenix. They could just go ahead and strip the map back up to the Gold Fury or the Pyromancer after, and then sit pretty with a close to 10,000 gold lead. We'll see how Sleekness decides to put up a defense. I think it's likely we see them at least put up a soft defense on these tier 2 towers. Nehu's got great poke from a range. Oceans can essentially slow down every single objective just by tossing a wall up for 7 seconds and saying, okay, well, I'm wasting your time. You can't hit my tower for right now. And then, well, you can still utilize Dude Man Bro. We've seen that he's very willing to be aggressive inside of these fights, and with this Tank Shredder build, it's very easy to apply that damage when you're on defense.
Not looking too healthy as far as relics are concerned either for Tiburones. I'd imagine it's Spreen and Bluggen who are going to be the focal points by Sleekness if they were keeping track of those relics. Renjaru, the only one that has his Aegis and beads readily available, and Tiburones, though, because of the fact they have this Cupid, they've also got Sustain. Even if it's just a little bit, every little bit counts in these moments. Sleekness just trying to buy as much time as possible, waste Tiburones FG as much as possible. Nice wall placement from Oceans, and Bluggen, he's going to have to back off for the time being. Renjaru already down to half HP, and there's some of that range poke you were just mentioning, Mifflin. It's already posing a pretty big issue here for Sleekness, or excuse me, for Tiburones. Doesn't seem as though they feel all that comfortable with the push, and now I think that's why we're seeing Spreen and Bluggen just look for a flank opportunity, maybe a bit of a pincer maneuver to try and force Sleekness back.
Frontliners need to start creating some space for the backline. Renjaru, with just a moment, can shred this tower.
Renjaru finally managed to take out that T2 tower, but it could be Chronic left out to dry. Oath, on the other hand, he's getting dove inside of his Phoenix by Bluggen in the Bat Out of Hell. Two ultimates expended, excuse me. Renjaru also lost that Fields of Love, but only a T2 tower to keep it on his name currently. Oath is going to have to retreat to the fountain for some HP, and for the most part, Sleekness do a pretty decent job at defending that mid-side Phoenix. This first FG might only be intended for clearing out the remaining towers on this map, Mifflin. I'm not sold that Tiburones have enough to actually push for those Phoenixes.
No, clearly they are playing very hesitant around their lead right now. Fire Giant on 4 members. We're talking about a 6,000 or so gold lead approaching that tower.
By the way,
I would have liked to see them play a little bit more aggressively there. I had Cope acted as that front line, and he'd look for some of these plucks onto someone that doesn't have beads. It could have either been Oceans, could have been Oath, or something along those lines. Could have created enough space. Only one pick is all you need to open up an entire Phoenix push, and then once you're inside the Phoenix proper, I think that it'd be very likely that we see Sleekness, even if they were losing out on a singular member, to try and put up a 4 versus 5 defense. But at the end of the day, they still come out ahead. The Sharks are still stripping away at the map very slowly, to be sure, but still finding these wins, and safe plays do net yourself some pretty nice leads, but a lead only lasts for so long, and the longer this game goes, the 8,000-9,000 gold that Tiburones find in their favor is starting to mean less and less.
Well, Renjaru also has that Silver Branch in tow, so a little bit more penetration going to come his way, and a little bit of attack speed steroid boost as well. Have to remember that Cupid's third ability does provide him with passive attack speed, so Silver Branch passive, I think, working nicely with Renjaru and helping to shred some of these towers, but Sleekness, again, they know that this Fire Giant has worn off, and this T2 tower could be Tiburones flirting with disaster if they're not careful, Mifflin.
It could be. I'm surprised to see them keep up this push considering how slow they played it with the Fire Giant in mid. Ocean's in first.
Ocean's going to get the Purification Beads out of Bluggen, but it's Heat on the backside. Fields of Love going to cripple everybody for the time being. Nehu trying to get out. Ocean's trying to get out, but Chronic, he's still pushing forward. Oath going to try and take a one-on-one with Bluggen on the side. This Camazotz could be in some real trouble, but the dropkick not going to connect. T2 tower does wind up falling here in favor of Tiburones, but that was way closer than what I think Tiburones ever intended. Granted, they will take the Primal Fury on the back end of that as well, but with this fresh FJ just now spawning, Miff, this could be a little dangerous for Tiburones because Sleekness seemingly pouncing back.
Yeah, it seems that they're ready to start fighting into these engagements. Double Fields of Love from Tiburones inside of that fight means that really Sleekness was not allowed to step forward. It was Oceans in first, good poke from Nehu into the back line of the Sharks, and Then, that's where the double Cupid ult drops down, and immediately the disengage starts to ring for Sleekness. That said, you're right, Taco. It seems like the Chaos team has got a little bit more life in them, stepping up to the FG.
And maybe it's just me, but I also feel like Spreen, if he's going to invest for the Cupid, for the Fields of Love, try and toggle the timers between it. Wait for Renjaru's to end, and then prioritize using the next. I feel like dropping both of them at the same time, while it can enhance damage, that's only if they all get caught out in it, and with using both at the same time, well, you only have to use your beads once then, and Sleekness, I think, recognizing the fact that, hey, we can give up this T2 tower, but they got some decent poke back into Tiburones, and I really want to keep an eye on Oath here with this Gilgamesh, because he's been doing an excellent job at cutting off that flank maneuverability from the Tiburones. Looking largely at Blugan, Spreen, and Heat here, they've definitely had some difficulties getting through to the back line.
I'm keeping my eyes on Nehu as well. The damage output from this Morgan Le Fay has been absolutely wild inside of these last couple of engagements, but the Sharks, now in neutral territory, can take a fight up against Sleekness. It is a slow group up, and this is one of the issues I had with the Sharks draft. Their front line is a little bit lacking. If it's not Cope, who is it really setting up for the team?
Well, Nehu, he's going to lose half his HP bar and might even be his life at this point. Spreen gets credit for the kill. Oath on the mean end. He's going to try to Hero's Escape to safety, but a nice Heart Bomb and the Fields of Love just to further ensure the lockdown. Malugan now looking to take down Oceans, and it's a full collapse here. 3 members dead. Make that 4 as Spronic gets a triple kill onto Chronic, and Spreen, he is just on a tear away. We were just talking about Nehu, gassing him for that player damage. Tiburones just absolutely dismantling Sleekness, and now it's an enhanced Fire Giant that they'll get to take for themselves.
Don't get it twisted, Taco. That was not a team fight. That was a grouped up pick. I mean, Tiburones walk in, Heat from the side immediately isolates Nehu with some max range Osiris abilities, and we saw it from there. Dark Omen was all it took to finish off the Morgan Le Fay, and then it was a clean fight after that. Sleekness putting up absolutely zero defense. I was actually surprised to see the Sharks go for the Fire Giant, though. It was 40 seconds synced respawn timers. I think they could have just ended the game, but now they get to fight back in with enhanced Fire Giant.
It's about sending a message, Mifflin.
Yeah, we gotta let them know.
Sending the message.
Yeah, now defend again. Good luck. You didn't get to play the last team fight. Yeah, try again. I guess is the message.
Well, to be fair, with Enhanced Fire Giant, those last standing structures that we thought were going to be a concern for Tiburones based on how that initial Fire Giant siege went for them, I don't think it's going to be nearly as problematic. EFG certainly making quick work of that mid-Phoenix, and now with one lane already being exposed to fire minions, it's really up to Tiburones to decide, hey, do we want to take left, do we want to take right? Maybe even looking at a split push opportunity here, because you have to remember, you don't need minions to actually take down these last few standing structures. Although there is a T2 tower in right side, Tiburones, if they wanted, could probably just ignore it and continue to push down this left side, because if they're able to get another successful just about deicide, I don't really think that Sleekness are feeling too comfortable with their current positioning against Tiburones.
Gotta agree, Taco. If Sleekness gets decided, they're probably
they probably lose the game, right? That's
probably lose the game right there, unless the Sharks go for another neutral objective.
Well, it wasn't a deicide, technically speaking.
Yeah, it was only a 4-piece last time. Okay, so if all 5 die, I'm going to put money on this. I bet the Sharks win off that.
That's a good bet.
Yeah,
I can't disagree.
Take that action.
I think you win that bet, hands down. Chronic, on the other hand, not winning any sort of engagements against Renjaru. A nice fear, though, going to get some good poke going, but Chronic still sitting pretty low. Oath going to be able to force Blugan back one more time. He's got to be careful. Now Blugan's got a response here, and it's Cope Baby providing the peel that his jungler needs. Blugan taking out Oath, Gilgamesh down for the count. Heed running around inside of the base of Sleekness, and this left side Phoenix not looking particularly healthy. Meanwhile, the collapse from the back end of Tiburones, Renjaru, Spreen, they might not have a whole lot of HP, but they certainly have their front line to work with.
Nehu able to sustain back up with his own ultimate, is surviving a very long dive from Heed, but now beads down and ult down could cost him his life.
Renjaru, though, will wind up falling to Doomman, bro. So ADC down, but I'm not sure that's going to make too much of a difference here. Ocean's trying to buy some time with Chronic. It is a 3-man collapse currently. Spreen tossing out damage where he can, but he's got to be careful. Cancel that. Doomman, bro, out for the count. 60 seconds on this Heimdall, and Spreen just going to collect the Rampage onto Oceans. 4 members dead. Oath, he's due to respawn any second now, but Chronic might already be dead before he makes it back into the fray. And sure enough, Cope Baby going to help secure the kill onto this King Arthur. Titan sitting at half HP, and a lone Gilgamesh is only thing that stands between Tiburones and their game win here in this set. And it seems as though Spreen trying to be respectful of the Gilga damage, but he might not need to be. Cope Baby, they've got him covered.
Yeah, best of luck, Oath. Tie up your cape, see if you can do it, but so far, looks like Shark's got it.
There's just too much damage already applied to the Titan. Enhanced Fire Giant on top of that. 2 Phoenixes, Fire Minion waves just pouring in from 2 different directions. And again, a full HP Osiris, a full HP Sobek. Really not much left to be said here. Tiburones will take game number 1 between Sleekness and themselves. And, well, we'll be right back with a little bit more action and a little bit further breakdown of what exactly took place in this game. So make sure to stay tuned. We'll see you guys in a second. Welcome back, Smite fans, to the Smite Challenger Circuit, Week 4, Day 2. We've already seen a little bit of a taste in the action here between Tiburones and Sleekness. Tiburones, however, did walk away with game victory number 1, but that's not to say that Sleekness couldn't look for the bounce-back opportunities. Mifflin still here joining me for this wonderful set. And Miff, what are some of your initial thoughts after that game 1?
Well played to the Sharks, able to push their lead. I would say that I think that the Sharks played a little bit more cautiously than I was expecting throughout that match, right? Despite finding the win at the end, maybe a couple of questionable plays put them in a position where there was comeback mechanics for Sleekness. I mean, that quadra kill or 4-man decisive. How do you word that? Just that little 4-piece combo we saw on the right-hand side of the map.
Had a triple.
Yeah, so the screen triple into 4-man kill could have definitely resulted in a game end, right? I mean, they had exposed Phoenix in mid. Wave was actually pushed up as well. So I think that could have immediately ended the match there. A couple of sieges with the Fire Giant were a little bit slow as well, meaning that gave Sleekness, again, another like 10 minutes to continue farming up. At the end of the day, still find the win. Still, Sleekness weren't quite able to, what's the right word for this? Make use of some of these, recover from some of these slight misplays. But I want to see Tiburones kind of tighten it up a little bit.
I think I agree with you on that. I do feel the same way in terms that Tiburones definitely showing some signs of hesitation or caution, where realistically they could have definitely pushed their aggression a little bit more so. Granted, they were still able to find this game 1 victory at the end of it all, so I'm sure they're definitely feeling nice about that in general. But a pretty big takeaway that I noticed, at least, is there was a lot of aggression and focus from Tiburones into that solo mid side of the map, and when that's going down, duo lane, it can be left to be the wild, wild west, essentially. But as far as Dude Man Bro is concerned, unless you are absolutely certain that you are going to find a solo kill, and even then, there's really no particular reason to try and force that sort of engagement. The Heimdall, I don't know if you saw that solo clip that we just got to witness from Renjaru, a little bit further breakdown. Yeah, it's just, he's trying to invade on his own. I can understand that, but you have to assume that you're just going to be turn and burn, because Purification Beads negates everything that Heimdall is going to do, and without his frontline or anybody to force those beads in the first place, just seems like a questionable engagement, a questionable force out. Didn't need to happen, and it just puts so much pressure even further onto the likes of Sleekness, because now your solo lane's in the hole, and now your duo lane's in a hole too, because your Hunter couldn't handle the 1v1. So tough stuff there, I would say, for Sleekness, but they're in that first pick position now. Soul, Morrigan, going to be the initial takeaways. And Miff, you talked a lot about that Camazotz-Morrigan combination in the top 3 here for Tiburones. Seems as if Sleekness were not really a fan.
No, they don't want to play against that Morrigan again at all. I mean, it's just the utility. The Changeling Ultimate was so hard to deal with within the early game. I mean, how many times did we see them try to dive this Morrigan and then immediately turn into Camazotz and bat out of hell their way out of there? This time around, though, with these targeted bans, does leave something available. Raijin is going to be on the table, as that was where that Morrigan ban was last time around, which means that Sleekness benefits from this.
Have to remember that Raijin was who Sleekness had actually opted to ban in those initial top 3 when they were in the second pick position of game 1. But the Osiris reigning true still for Heat, and it seems as though Oblivion totally content to run it back with the Camazotz as well. Mifflin, we're seeing a lot of repeats here, at least on the side of Tiburones. Do you like the Osiris and Camazotz as the initial response for this Raijin?
No. No, I don't, because Raijin makes sense to me, right? We're prioritizing that all over the world right now. It's got great utility. Gilgamesh has been a consistent factor for a lot of teams at the SCC and SPL level. I think that there's just a couple picks out there that outshine Camazotz inside of the jungle, and well, 2 of those picks already showing their heads here. Erlang Shen as well, I think, could have been a pickup there for the Tiburones, but now we've got Gilgamesh support, I suppose, with a Erlang Shen jungle.
It could be a
I
solo.
like Gilga. I like Gilga a lot. It could be Gilga solo. Could be Erlang solo too if we want to go way, way back. But I think that Gilgamesh finds his home in the jungle much better than anywhere else. And with the composition as it stands, I think it's very unlikely that we see him there.
And if it is the Erlang Shen in support for Oceans, that could maybe alleviate some of the pressure, because he was getting caught out on that Amir. Very difficult when you're dealing with such immobility, but Erlang kind of the opposite of that. He's definitely got plenty of mobility and a little bit of lockdown potential as well with that pin. So if it is an Erlong intended for that support role, I do think that it is a nice counter initiation tool against the likes of a Camazotz, especially because you just have the immediate taunt in. But with the Bologna now reigning through, Mifflin seems as if Sleekness are just taking their pick of all the warriors available in the game right now.
Yeah, they're just jamming it down, man. This is a very dive-heavy composition. Even Izanami kind of fits into that role as well. Raijin can thunderclap inside of the early game. But I think we got a much better look on how this draft is going to line up. We have seen Oceans take the Gilgamesh into support in the past. We know that Erlang Shen likely going to the jungle. Bologna has seen a slight resurgence in the European SCC out of the solo. And I think Finoke has piloted it a couple times in the SPL. So Bologna likely going to be in the short lane as well. Meanwhile, the Sharks, I think, probably have a better holistic draft. Their draft has a better purpose behind it, but maybe each individual piece might be slightly worse. Does that make sense? The whole is greater than the sum of the parts here.
I think it depends on how they utilize this the composition that they opted for, because I actually really like Hercules personally. I think that Herc is a god that can kind of counteract early game pressure incredibly well, and as we take a look into game number 2, it is going to be Cope Baby on that Hercules. Kind of had a hunch that that was really the best place for him to wind up, because you know that Sleekness, we're going to have one of these warriors in support, and it is that Gilgamesh for Oceans here. So as far as the Gilgamesh Hercules debate is concerned, Driving Strike, if I'm not mistaken, is the only CC in the game that rules out, or it rules over everything else. So I believe that the Driving Strike could technically negate the effects of the drop kick.
I think it could, but I've not exactly extensively tested that matchup myself, so I'm not going to go ahead and put myself out there. We'll go ahead and see how that
I'll
one
put myself
pans.
out there.
Yeah?
I am like 99.9% sure nothing beats Hercules Driving Strike.
Well, that depends, right? Is it just the kick applying, or is it Hercules making contact with Gilgamesh himself while channeling the kick? I mean, because it is a channel.
If they're channeled at the same time, I'm confident that Hercules wins that.
All right.
Every time. But right now, it's going to be all about the wave clear in that duo lane. And Doomambro, certainly a little bit more effective than a ROM for the time being. Still, I think that this Izanami Gilgamesh, they're going to have to be careful. I do think that as far as these lanes are concerned, though, Myth, or as far as these drafts are concerned, really, whoever slips up first is likely going to be in a rough spot for the entirety of the game.
Yeah, I think it was Hindu Man that said that Erlang Shen in particular is the god of feast or famine. Either
Yes.
you're popping off really hard, you got a 2 or 3 level lead, it feels like he's unstoppable because he's one-shotting you with his ability rotation, or he falls like 2 levels behind and isn't allowed to engage. Oath with an early rotation, followed by Blugan, though.
And it's going to be Cope Baby with a nice Earthbreaker to disrupt Doomambro from the initiation. Oceans, though, getting completely collapsed on. Oath will find the first blood.
Rip.
Or, excuse me, that's going to be Oceans taken down as well. A nice return. But the damage definitely done in favor of this Erlong Shen getting that first blood bounty. And Renjaru, having been the victim, he's kind of just like, guys, I'm still here underneath his T1 tower as he dies. Focus just a little bit preoccupied there from Tiburones. And I'm sure Oath definitely happy to walk away with that one. Trading out the support for the ADC. Also a nice look for Doomambro.
It is. That is a great start so far for Oath inside of the jungle, finding himself about a half level in the lead. And we got a little look at how the mid lane matchup is panning out as well. Inside of the early game, distinct advantage going to go over towards the Raijin with the Raiju and the Thunderclap for aggression. And Spreen forces it inside of his tower. Chronic, though, can't be having that happen, bud. Come on. Soloed by Heed at the 2.5-minute mark.
And a Purification Beads is going to get Heed out of danger from Oath on the wraparound flank. Chronic needs to mine that space a little bit better. Ocean's going to get plucked and tucked into the tower now as Cope Baby reminding Oceans that he's still around, and Ocean's definitely going to have to be a little bit more careful as far as how far along that tower line he's really willing to play. Don't want to repetitively get pulled inside of those shots.
No, not at all. Luckily, the Hero's Leap should keep him alive in situations like that. And if he's using it on the support, Cope Baby is using that pull onto Oceans every single time, at least creating space and eating abilities is Oceans for Dude Man Bro. So that means there's a little bit added safety inside of the lane. That said, the Sharks coming out pretty ahead here inside of the duo, specifically Cope, who has been level 4 for a good deal of time here. Oceans just now ticking over. I think it's going to be a tough hill to climb for Sleekness inside of the long lane. I think it's pretty likely that we see both supports rotate out very shortly. Dude Man Bro, I kind of like his odds in the 1v1 up against Renjaru. Might as well try and create that situation as soon as possible.
Ocean's just going to
cool.
kick Coat Baby back. Nice little stun effect into the ROM, but I'm right there with you on that, Myth. I do think that these supports are probably better off just trying to create as much engagement as possible in that mid lane, because if you can generate some early pressure with the Raijin especially, Nehu, I'm sure he's out for revenge up against Spreen here. Spreen kind of just got to have his way with the entirety of Sleekness in Game 1.
Taco, keep me honest here. Did Spreen go Warlock Staff first item in Game 1 as well? Or is that a Game 2 special here?
I believe it's a Game 2 special. I don't actually recall what the itemization build was in Game 1 from his first item slot. But it's really not that unrealistic we've been seeing a lot of Warlock stuff in general. I know that's primarily something that we see reserved for gods like the Baba Yaga, for example. It's because of the way her passive works, but given the fact that mid lane seems to be the most chill spot right now, since it's largely just aggression taking place in these side lanes, maybe Spreen just feeling as though he'd rather have a little bit more survivability added with the HP out of that Warlocks.
Yeah, I think so, and, well, he should have a good opportunity to stack it up. It is the Warlock Staff selection for Spreen out of mid, as he just does finish that item up, and with all this dive potential on the side of Sleekness, triple warrior composition, that health is going to be very impactful for him inside of mid, and as you already highlighted, we haven't seen anyone step up to Spreen just yet.
Well, luckily enough for Chronic, he will be able to confirm his blue buff thanks to that disarm. However, knowing that Heed is just hawking this buff, not going to allow Chronic to actually pick it up. And not saying that Bologna is a god that really needs that mana buff, but it's
Good
more so
Lord.
the annoyance factor. And Chronic even going to have to Eagles rally just to collect his blue buff. That's his survivability, Mifflin, right out the window to pick up a buff. Do you really think that exchange is worth it?
No, I think he could have walked like literally the other way, like lower into his own tower and then go up to pick the blue buff up, but instead decides to walk right in front of Heed, who has already sold him so far this game. And I think once you're in that position, once you're hit by the sickle, you kind of have to ult over the wall or you're just going to lose out on your life. Chronic making the right decision in that micro moment, but maybe not the right decision macro, as he kind of put himself in that position. That said, I'm not a huge Bologna fan. I'm going to keep it honest. Season 8, I don't think she's one of the best picks you can go for, and so far he'd kind of proven that she can't hang, not against this Osiris. The poke and the 1v1 favoring Osiris.
Ooh, Spreen now on the run for his life. He's barely going to manage to get away.
51.
Does lose the purification beads in the process, but now it's Oath tangoing with Bluegan inside of the jungle while that mid lane engagement was taking place. So 3 ultimates expended so far for Sleekness. Ocean's nearly managing to help take down Spreen, but Beads, of course, saving the day, getting him out of that Winds of Shamash. And Morgan Le Fay certainly recognizing the fact that they're going to be heavily under fire here. And I think it's just the best direction for Sleekness to go right now. Solo lane, I'm not saying it's a lost cause, Mifflin, but I don't know if I'm Oath. I don't know that I really want to be anywhere near this side of the map right now.
No, Chronic, you made your bed, now you got to lie on it, and that bed's name is Heed, and Heed is bullying this lane. That said, Spreen already got value from the Warlock Staff. Survives that engagement with 51 HP, 50 more than he needed. That's all Warlock Staff keeping him alive.
Ooh, disarm not going to connect there for Chronic, so he's just going to continue walking away, but now Heed incredibly low. Coat Baby, though, he's here for the collapse. Driving strike on a force purification beats Eagles rally up in time for Chronic to make his escape, but now it's Nehu rotating in, and Blugin going to be the target. A nice knockup from Oath, going to ensure that Oath gets the pick onto Blugin, and Kamazot's down for the count. Blue buff totally protected here by Sleekness, but a lot of investment from Sleekness on that same note in order to make sure that their solo laner could finally get a buff uncontested.
But still finds himself 1 level in the hole up against his opposition. But that is a good bait from Chronic towards the rest of his team, making sure that the fight swings the way of Sleekness, and maybe Ocean's able to steal away a blue buff here. Heed actually getting the tables turned onto him for once.
He doesn't want to expend that Lord of the Afterlife to give chase, just going to hold that L for the time being. I'm certain that Sleekness will probably have difficulties looking to recollect on that blue buffer. It's next respawn in the future. All the while, everything seems to return to normal here on the rest of the map. Farm seems to be the priority, especially in that duo lane, and well, these hunters seemingly going a pretty similar build pathway. All that thought though, Oath under fire now. Nice taunt in from the 9 turns blessing, but it could be Oath biting off a little bit more than he could chew.
Yeah, he sticks around, doesn't actually use the turtle for the disengage, maybe realizing that the rest of his team is en route. That said, Nehu left high and dry.
And that's going to be Blugan drop kicked into the wall instantly. A perfect disengage forced there by Oceans. There's a really nice blink in from Blugan as well. Completely read exactly where Nehu was going to go. Had he been left to his own devices, I'm certain that Blugan would have been able to take down Nehu. Those vampiric bats already chunking up against the likes of this Raijin. However, Oceans has other things in mind. He's not going to let anybody in his team die for free if he can help it.
No, not at all. But Ocean's in a position now where he's kind of playing that peel role, and when you're playing Gilgamesh support, you kind of want to be jamming it down. Gilgamesh support plays very similarly to Fenris support in that you are just trying to play aggressive. You're just trying to generate threat on the map on your own, and so far, Oceans has been relegated towards, okay, I got to stop what the Sharks are doing rather than playing his own game.
Well, talked about how Oath probably wouldn't want to show his face anywhere near the solo lane, and he does the exact opposite of that. Fortunately, it's just, I mean, the pin's off the mark. There's really no reason for that engagement to try and be forced any further. I do think that the idea is really just to make Heed reconsider about whether or not he wants to challenge the blue buff invade over and over again. So I like the fact that Oath is showing face for that. But if you are going to make the effort to rotate over, maybe try to be a little bit more concise with the placement of your crowd control.
But maybe those rotations have done enough to bail Chronic out of the hole, actually ticking over to level 11 before he does inside of the solo lane. Chronic has been getting legitimately cyberbullied for the last 10 minutes, but now finally finding a little bit of equity inside of the lane. Maybe we see a turnaround once he finishes his Berserker's shield.
And do you think that that's just an Osiris exclusive, just being an outright lane bully, or do you think it has more to do with the matchup that Chronic opted for into this Osiris?
I think it's a lot to do with an early game misplay, right? Chronic getting soloed, probably not
that
ideal. I don't think Osiris generally is going to do that too often, but Bologna certainly not a meta pick.
Renjaru, he's just going to roll away from that one, but Blugan, on the other hand, he has nowhere left to run. Oath with another pick onto this Camazotz. Blugan seemingly having more difficulties than when he did in game one with the bat. And now Oath still grouped with the rest of his team on this duo side. Gold Fury is up for grabs, but a little bit of hesitation, it seems, from Sleekness. It looks as though they want the objective, but it also looks as though they might want this red and buff invade more.
Maybe a pick. One more pick would make that objective so much easier. Cope able to find the driving strike on the Oath, and maybe too far. Oceans caught out by Spreen.
Two-Man Bro on the other hand, he's just going to go ahead and take down that red buff. Nice invade away,
Good
but
shots.
Great Astral Barrage from overhead. That's going to be Renjaru helping Spreen collect that final killing blow, but Oath makes him pay for his life, and Blugan makes sure to return the favor. A dive from the Erlong Shen into the tower will ensure that he kills Renjaru, but trading out his own life in the process, that puts Sleekness a little bit further behind in terms of map pressure. Tiburones, on the other hand, they're going to try to create some pressure here in mid now. Nehu not going to get caught out by that driving strike, or excuse me, Earthbreaker. But Oath, he was 4-1, or 4-0, excuse me, and that's a shutdown bounty now in place for Blugan, which might have actually been the worst case scenario there, Mifflin, because Blugan was in the hole. All right, he was 0-2. He was definitely behind in farm and gold, and that kill bounty might have been enough to close the gap.
Yeah, it was, and considering who Oath was trading out his life for, Renjaru was already 0-1, so maybe not the most valuable kill. Sleekness, though, finally, on the respawn, decided to go ahead and group up on the Gold Fury itself, and that should spell the end of it, barring a crazy play from Spreen here, and that's not the case. Was not in range, so Sleekness, credit for this one. And I think they could have gone for the Gold Fury a little bit sooner. Rather than diving past that red buff, had they just pulled Gold Fury and forced Tiburones to walk into their own range, onto their side of the map, or into neutral territory at least, maybe that last team fight goes a little bit better. But at the end of the day, Sleekness find themselves a 1,000 gold lead.
That probably had more to do with Sleekness trying to generate some map pressure onto that red buff in general. I have to remember, Two-Man Bro also was not a participant, really. He was focused on the objective play, which was the red buff, and Oceans largely just trying to create some space with that Gilgamesh. He will have to be careful, though, moving forward, because I think we're getting a little bit of an insight as to where this Warlock staff, now fully stacked up, really stands here for Spreen. Some of that counter burst damage maybe not anticipated by Sleekness's front line.
No, and so much more survivability for Spreen as well. Some additional movement speed from the Charon's coin, worth noting. Also gets 20% movement speed from her third ability if she's able to make contact with an enemy god. So it's actually deceptively hard to chase down a Morgan Le Fay, and once Sleekness does chase her down, they got to deal through a Warlock staff worth of HP. That is a very tall task at this point. Pyromancer, though, taken by Sleekness.
A nice pin there from Oath, going to make sure that they get the objective, but now it's Oceans under fire. Cope Baby going to look for the excavate, get some nice damage off onto Nehu in the process, but it's the drop kick into the completion. Cope Baby, though, still going to take down Nehu for the time being. Chronic with a nice rotation in, going to make sure that Blugan falls in response, but it's Heed, the ultimate raid boss now. So Osiris has entered the battlefield. Oceans will survive for the time being. Chronic, on the other hand, on the run for his life. Heed fully topped up. He's not going to let this Bologna go anywhere. He'll take as many tower shots as necessary. Mystical Mart possibly even contributing for that last hit kill. Dumembro has rotated over as well, but the fight all but dissipated. Tiburones, they might not have gotten the Pyromancer midline, but they'll take 3 kills in response.
3 kills in a tier 1 tower in mid. Renjaru able to rotate over and pick that one up, and with Dumembro on the right-hand side of the map, might be able to get a tier 1 on the left as well. Tiburones getting a little bit better map play this time around. Was a lead for Sleekness, just 1,000 a moment ago, if you can remember back then, and now it's Tiburones finding themselves slightly in control. Experience and gold still largely equalized, not really enough to write home about as of this point, but certainly a swing here at the 15-minute mark, and now the Sharks can go just about anywhere they want on the map. Primal Fury going to be up in a little bit here. Gotta imagine that's the next POI we see both of these teams start to contend over, or it could be we see another little sneaky Fire Giant play. I think maybe I crossed my fingers for that one. That was fun to see.
That was definitely, it was interesting for sure from Tiburones in last game, but I guess the main takeaway that I have from that last little skirmish is that was on Sleekness' side of the map for the most part, Mifflin, and Tiburones just did not care. They were completely charging in, trying to force some sort of pick, and I think for what it's worth, Sleekness might have gotten a little bit caught up there, thinking that they could counteract some of that early aggression. I almost feel like they might have been better off, though, just bailing entirely.
Yeah, I mean, clearly chasing it back out was not the play. Chronic isolates himself inside of the lane, a couple of picks inside of the jungle as well, all adds up to a clean play for the Sharks going forward. Now, a couple of power plays on the map. Ocean's finally ticking over to level 12, but might not have time to head back to base before we see another one of these team fights erupt. So it's a 3-man grouping from Sleekness on the left-hand side, and Renjaru going for the OG Barracuda play, realizing that a lot of people are on his side of the map. Maybe I sit in the tier 2 tower for a little bit.
And Sprain wishes that he could sit in a T2 tower right now. He's just being harassed non-stop by all of these warrior front lines. Oath Oceans, though, not going to be able to find anything other than, you know, a little bit of established pressure. But Sprain, he will expend the ultimate for that CC immunity. I think that was a necessity, given the fact that he would have been caught in that 9 turns blessing otherwise. Meanwhile, Heed, once more, nobody on that side of the map in solo, nobody to contest. It's just going to be him left to his own devices to try and steal Chronic's blue buff. Will be unsuccessful, important to know, but does get the T1 tower instead. And now it's Cope Baby trying to get the pressure onto Nehu.
Nehu jumps over the wall and immediately goes into the Tycho drum. Blugan dropped low, forced to use the bat out of hell, and that should spell the end of this engagement unless Oceans is able to find a little bit of CC. Drop kick not good, and that is the end of this one. That said, Sleekness do establish a fair bit of defensive positioning around the Primal Fury. Taking a peek at it, no wards dropped on the pit itself. Sharks do have a couple of defensive wards, though, on that side of the map. Sleekness, on the other hand, incredibly aggressive wards deep near the red buff and on the top left-hand entrance to the left side jungle through mid. If Tiburones ever decide to approach the Gold Fury itself, Sleekness is going to be aware of it.
And with Cope Baby hovering on that duo side of the map, that's going to let Dumembro know to just chill out a little bit. Nothing to really lose or fight over. Just wants to make sure that he's topped up and healthy for whenever his team inevitably starts grouping to look for this Primal Fury objective. Think it might still be a little bit too soon in the game for either side to really feel all that comfortable with a Fire Giant pull out right, even with these Hunters both having crit online through that Rage. seems as if Sleekness would rather just try and buy their time until those Taiko drums are up again. Have to remember, Nehu didn't actually have to use his relics. It was a little bit of a spat in mid lane, but holding on to the Purification Bees and Egg is certainly a big deal when dealing with the likes of an Osiris, Camazotz, and Hercules.
Yeah, that's a ton of dive. Only relics down so far. The blinks for both Oath and Cope Baby, so engage from both teams. Taking a slight hit here. Sleekness, though, going to have that blink back and available in the next 10 seconds, meaning that they should be able to get involved in the back line of the Sharks. The Sharks, with Heed at the forefront of the charge, are able to create infinite space. Seems like nobody on the side of Sleekness is remotely interested in stepping up to this Osiris, except for Chronic. He's willing to step up. He's willing to do it.
He kind of has to, but more importantly, Mifflin, look at this ward coverage right now from Tiburones. It is all red on the left side of the map, and with that being said, it's kind of incredible that Sleekness is just not really having any sort of opportunity to look for those backs to base. They know that they have to stay in the area, because if they don't stay in the area, then that'll be a freebie pool for the Tiburones. And of course, Tiburones, they're just looking for anything to try and establish a bit of a lead here. And this Primal Fury objective, Mifflin, without a doubt, one of the best things that they could fight over right now. We'll get back into the game momentarily, by the way, guys. Just waiting to smooth things out a little bit. But for the time being, from what we were just witnessing, Mifflin, Primal Fury seems to be the absolute star of the show right now.
Yeah, both teams are essentially even at this point of the game, Taco. I mean, we're talking less than 1,500 gold separating each of these squads, means that this Primal Fury essentially spells Fire Giant in the near future as we are approaching that 20-minute mark. I think that it all comes down to play on field. Which team is able to establish a defensive positioning and force out the opposition? As of right now, it's the Sharks controlling the Gold Fury pit, and it's only Oceans and Chronic in range to put up a defense. So the Sharks go ahead and pull it out. It's burning pretty quickly. Sleekness are going to have to respond.
On the bright side, though, finally a chance for these Sentry Wars to start coming out, but it's Blugan committing to the back line. He's going to be forcing that bat out of hell incredibly early on. Heed, Lord of the Afterlife, for the Escaped Eagles rally in from Chronic, but right now it's just a total disengaged trade-off for both of these teams. Sleekness, though, seem to be on the advance here. Oracle Vision still going to be in favor of Tiburones, but a lot expended on both sides, and Primal Fury still left standing.
Only 2 ults left available, and they're both for the Sharks. It's both Spreen and Renjaru who hold on to their 4th abilities, so that's a good deal. Poke Nehu jumping in aggressive, goes unpunished. Oceans, though, can't say the same, drop down to 10%.
And it's going to be the snipes now from Renjaru that could be the difference maker. Astral Barrage not going to connect for the time being. Blugan, on the other hand, incredibly low, but it's Chronic who gets pulled into his death. Spreen with his 2nd kill of the game, and Primal Fury now already down to 20% HP. It looked as if Sleekness was finally going to manage to come out on top here, Mifflin, but instead they lose their solo laner, and now Primal Fury, the way of Tiburones, just means further map pressure in their favor. Pyromancer seeming to be the next call to play as well, given the fact that Chronic's still out for another 20 seconds or so. Ultimate's still waiting to come back online for Sleekness, and of course, gotta look at the relics difference between these two teams. Beads and Aegis still available for a couple of members on Tiburones. In comparison to that from Sleekness, it's a lone Aegis standing for Dude Bro. So even though Sleekness seemed as though they were making the steps towards advancing, Tiburones just turn and burn.
Sleekness with a composition like this need to win out on the initial engagement. Triple Warrior start, you blink in with Oceans as ultimate. From there, you gotta hope you get at least 1 kill. I think it comes down to the Sharks holding on to a couple of their key abilities. It was both Spreen and Renjaru who have their ultimates available post-engagement. Despite having Heed forced back to base, it doesn't necessarily matter. Sleekness burnt all their energy trying to dive and didn't hit any sort of pay dirt, and from there, it's all the Sharks on the re-engage.
I think that's also partially credited to the fact that we're seeing the aggression from Sleekness that you would want with the Triple Warrior frontline.
Yeah, they're
but
trying.
On that same note, the target focus isn't always the same. We're oftentimes seeing Oath and Chronic looking 2 different directions, and that kind of puts a little bit of pressure onto Nehu and Dude Bro, because as the carry, you want to follow up, but when you're watching 2 different members attack 2, sometimes 3 different members, you don't really know which one you're going to be following up on. So I think that Sleekness just need to be a little bit more precise in terms of who they really want to try and run down here, because I think you said it best. This is not a composition that is meant for a reinitiation territory. This is get in, get it done, and then move on to the next objective after the fact or whatever. But as it currently stands, Sleekness kind of fighting themselves on this one.
Yeah, Sleekness communication needs to be, hey, Nehu, who are you able to hit? We're going to hit them too, and we're going to go ahead and work their way through. The entire strategy of this composition is we got to use our front line to maneuver our carries and put them in a position where they can perform. But so far, it feels like Oceans, Oath, and Chronic are trying to do it all on their own, and they legitimately just don't have the damage output to do it. The Tiburones are able to disengage very well. Spreen on the Morgan Le Fay has great disengage for herself and has been utilized very well.
And Oceans, he's tired of sitting around, going to use that Hero's Leap inward, trying to get, again, another team fight generated here for Sleekness, but it's just going to send Heat packing momentarily. 4 members still standing, relatively healthy here from Tiburones, so it's not like this Fire Giant pool is really all that up for grabs here. Just a little quarrel of aggression there out of Oceans, and Heed maybe taking note of some of the crit damage that's about to be coming his way. He's already got that Spectral online, a Thorns as well. Same could be said for Chronic. It's really all about who's going to be able to get the first pick here, and right now Tiburones seem to be trying to set up onto Oath.
Lugan in the back foresees the beads and the bat out of hell to escape the ultimate from Oath, but that's the re-engage now. Tiburones, having survived the initial from Sleekness, have a good start.
And this is he trying to go all in. Crit's only hitting him for 43. He could care less. Astral Barrage onto this Raijin. 2 snipes are going to connect, but it's Oceans who's in trouble here. Cancel that. Blugan going to be the first one to fall. Doomman Bro takes out Coat Baby in the process. Doomman Bro with the double kill. Oh, trying to stay alive as long as possible, but he's going to wind up falling to Heat on the backside. Still 3 members dead. The Hunter still alive here from Sleekness as well. This is a back and top up.
No
Make
way.
sure that everybody gets healthy. Spreen seemed as if he was still hawking around trying to see if he could pick up Oceans in the process, but Chronic already managing to make it back to base. He's going to be coming out full HP now, and it's going to be Sleekness with the Sentry on the Fire Giant. No one to clear out vision in favor of Tiburones just yet. But this should definitely be Sleekness' time to strike, Mifflin. They've got to act now because Coat Baby already due to respawn any second now, and Sleekness kind of taking their sweet time with pulling this Fire Giant.
Yeah, I'd say that this Fire Giant is a long shot now for Sleekness. There's no way Heat and Spreen can't stop this from happening. I mean, Sleekness sticking around for so long, this might just swing in favor of the Sharks.
That's going to be he with Lord of the Afterlife to get out. Well, Spreen just absolutely decimated by Raijin on the backside. Nehu going to take him down for the count, but a nice double plug into the driving strike from Coat Baby. Fire Giant disengaged one more time. It's the collapse now onto Heat, but this Hercules definitely getting the damage in. Now it's going to be Blugan looking to collect. Bat out of hell, might not get a chance to go off. Barely manages to escape for the time being, but it's all about Sleekness right now. This is getting sloppy, but this is what they needed. Doomman Bro with another double kill to his name, looking for the triple, and he takes it. Renjaru enters the fight and immediately sent packing. Tiburones trying to hold on here, trying to delay. Sure, they get the job done for the time being, but Oath, he's full HP. He's just going to chase Blugan down, make sure this Camazotz can't intervene. 4 members dead. Camazotz soon to join. Oath making sure that it is clean for Sleekness. And now, Tiburones might be sweating. We're finally starting to see some of this triple warrior presentation. And Doomman Bro getting all the space he needs to activate this Izza Deeps.
It was Spreen just standing a little bit too close inside of that engage, and once Heat has worked his way into the Fire Giant pit, you got to trust your tanky Osiris to be able to buy enough time for the rest of your team. After that, it's the Sharks, like the Lemmings, walking in 1 versus 1, one at a time. Just that conveyor belt on the way into the Fire Giant, and Sleekness say, I mean, I love my odds in a 5 versus 1. That's awesome for us. And, well, they win it. They win 5 separate 5 versus 1s inside of that Fire Giant fight, and finally get credit for it. Fire Giant on 5 members of Sleekness and a lot of towers still standing on the side of the Tiburones. Means that's a lot of gold that is now going to swing in favor of the Order side team already. That was like maybe 1,000 gold separating these two teams going into that Fire Giant engagement. Now it's 6,000. Favoring Sleekness going forward, and there's still 2 tier 2s, a Primal Fury, a tier 1, and 3 Phoenixes standing for the Sharks. It's a tough one, but Sleekness's engage is going to be a lot more effective on the siege. That 3-man warrior composition to create space, very easy to do in a enclosed space like a Phoenix.
Yeah, these two teams were not really factoring in the Phoenix defenses when they drafted these comps. They were looking to be the first one to take over. And Sleekness gonna get a little close against the excavate there, but Cope Baby is something but a pipe dream as he now loses a freebie form of CC immunity. And that boulder gonna be on cooldown for the time being, although it doesn't seem as though Tiburones are interested in trying to contest. They are just going to allow this T2 tower to fall, it seems like, and, well, now they're kind of trying to corral, show some face, but too little too late for what it's worth, Mifflin. T2 tower will wind up falling here, and I think another thing that's important to look at, Doomambro got a fully stacked rage off of that fight, just about.
Yeah,
it's collected. He's critting just about every auto now.
Yeah, he is going to be a huge determining factor inside of these team fights. Again, surprised to see Sleekness head back to base after that tier 2, especially if they decide to group up and take down this last tier 2. I mean, yeah, they went back to base to spend that gold, but their pressure was good. The Sharks were on the back foot. They weren't in position to continue defending. Nobody was set up inside a mid, and it seemed like Oath wanted to go for the push. He was the only one to show up to that tier 2 mid tower, but instead it's a gank attempt from the Sharks, immediately spotted out by Chronic. Should spell the end of that one.
This is the Tiburones rock, and they're willing to all stand behind it. 4 members trying to stay in hiding. We're hoping that Doomambro and Nehu would extend just a little bit further. They have Blugan trying to act as the bait, but no one from Sleekness really willing to bite just yet. Sleekness still trying to utilize what's left of their Fire Giant timer to see if they can take out this next T2 tower. And Mifflin, as far as the defense is concerned, if Tiburones, they don't really have to put up too heavy of a defense here because as long as they're all left standing, Phoenixes could be a little bit harder to siege.
Yeah, I think so. It's a soft defense to buy time, and maybe not even that. Cope stepping a little further forward, buys like 2 seconds on the tier 2 tower, and Sleekness, ever the hesitant play, ever the ones who cross their T's and dot their I's, go ahead and maneuver themselves throughout the jungle. Left side wave already pushed up. Could be an opportunity to get involved there. I think you're right. It's all going to come down to this Phoenix defense, and the Sharks have decent defense potential. If Cope's able to reposition one, the single target shred from the Sharks is incredibly good. We've already talked about how strong Morgan Le Fay is on defense. The ability to poke from a range is incredibly high, and the space creation tools are decent as well. But Sleekness has all the dive potential. I mean, this Triple Warrior draft is built for situations like this.
I think what really needs to happen for Tiburones here is the second that Nehu tries to invest for those Taiko drums, that's just got to be Renjaru all day long with the Astral Barrage. Get that freebie damage off onto the Raijin while he's fairly immobile and hope that Blugan and Spreen are going to be able to make up the difference for it, because if Raijin falls, I do think that would put a pretty big slow onto Sleekness's push. I know we've been seeing a lot of Doomambro highlight reel here so far, but a lot of that, I think, is just coming off the back of him being able to, alongside the rest of his team, he's been getting great damage off with Nehu in tow. And if it's Izanami, if either one of these carries dies, essentially, from Sleekness, and I guess the same could be said for Tiburones, but it's much more difficult to work whenever you're the only sole source of damage against a Triple Warrior frontline, because they just collapse so fast.
Gotta agree with that one. Fire Giant does wear off for Sleekness, so instead of keeping up the push and not going for the Phoenix, they're going to go ahead and regroup around the Fire Giant itself. Pyromans are going to be spawning very shortly, and Sleekness, having already established wards on the Fire Giant pit itself, can head back to base, pick up a couple more sentries, and get ready for this fight in from the Sharks. The Sharks, though, have been biding their time. They didn't want to put up too much of a defense around these tier 2s, as of the inherent risk of dying on a tier 2 defense means that you likely lose a Phoenix. Instead, they were exactly this, a neutral territory engagement, and this late in the game, 10,000 gold still matters a little bit, but not nearly as much as just 10 minutes ago. 32 minutes in, everyone's starting to approach that 6-item slot. I think Tiburones can fight in here, and they absolutely should.
And this is not your regular run-of-the-mill Fire Giant either. This is an enhanced Fire Giant at this point, Mifflin, but Pyromancer going to be quickly shredded. You read it right. 1,081 per crit there coming out of Doomambro. So the Izanami autos certainly chunking against these objectives. If Tiburones aren't careful, Sleekness could very easily utilize some of that Doomambro damage to take down this EFG in no time at all. But that's exactly why we see either Cope Baby or Heat constantly showing face in this Fire Giant pit. They're just there to basically deter Sleekness from trying to outright commit, because realistically speaking, it's only this Hercules and Osiris that can honestly stand in front of Sleekness for the time being.
Fire Giant is pulled. Sleekness burning it quickly. Sharks forced to respond.
And that's going to be Doom Man Bro getting collapsed immediately. A nice Tycho drum taunt away from Blugan is going to prevent him from the immediate collapse, but it's Nehu under fire now. Doom Man Bro with the Dark Portal kill onto Heed. Blugan not going to be able to close it onto Nehu just yet. Instead, Oath going to make sure to shut down and take down that Camazotz, but the damage definitely felt here. Doom Man Bro will wind up falling. So unfortunate because that looked like such a promising engage there for Sleekness as far as the counter initiation was concerned. Blugan being shut down so fast off that Camazotz go in. And, well, Renjaru, he's kind of left in the background here with Spreen for the time being. But at the very least, Sleekness won't be able to take this Fire Giant just yet.
No, Dude Man Bro falling down kind of removes all that potential of going towards the Fire Giant itself. Cope unfortunately misses a point-blank driving strike on a Nehu that would have finished off that kill.
Yeah, we try to ignore those.
But we're gonna leave Cope alone. You know, he's been having a very good performance in this Hercules so far this game, so we're gonna go ahead and give him the benefit of the doubt going forward. Was at least able to strip the Aegis off of this Raijin, so Nehu gonna have to play a lot more safely in the near future. Oni Fury gonna go the way of Sleekness, splitting up the map with those enhanced minion waves, but Fire Giant itself, enhanced Fire Giant, still available for either team. Both teams now 5 strong, so let's go ahead and run it back, Taco. Let's see if Sleekness can win out on a team fight yet again.
I do want to point out as well, notice Oath, he's got that 4th item on Keeley, and I think that this is important because it's basically established the fact that the only person he's looking for in these engagements, it's Spreen. He's trying to keep this Morgan Le Fay out of the fire lead by just committing to her by himself. And, well, if Tiburones aren't careful, he might just manage to do it because so far the emphasis has really been on Doom Man Bro and Nehu. And Tiburones, they're not really having the easiest time taking one, if any, of them out of the fight because it's almost always Nehu, Doom Man Bro just barely managing to survive. And I think it's more important for Doom Man Bro to stay alive just because of the fact that there is an enhanced Fire Giant up for grabs. But they've got to be careful. Blugan especially. He kind of flirted with disaster there. Had he died a little bit quicker, I think that could have very well been Sleekness just looking to take that engagement outright. So if you're going to blink in, invest that blink in with the Camazotz, you've got to make sure that you're either going straight into that bat out of hell or that you're preemptively beating immediately after, because right now he's just getting drop-kicked every single time. Really heads-up performance so far from Oceans, I would say, in the second half of this game. First half, a little bit questionable on the Gilgamesh, but...
Hold on, he's creating space, he's eating cooldowns.
There you go, this is the time.
He's doing all the stuff. Leave Oceans alone, all right? He's trying his best.
Yeah, I never said anything against it. I'm just saying in general, I've really been impressed by the way he's been able to prevent this Camazotz from essentially flourishing in the latter half of Game 2 here, and everything kind of hanging on the cusp of whether or not this enhanced Fire Giant will actually manage to fall. Heading back into game now, it's going to be Sleekness pulling it down already at 30% HP. They're just going to all in this, and it's going to be Sleekness with the Fire Giant secure. Heed now left to the wolves as Nehu cleans him up. This Osiris a non-factor for the next minute or so. Enhanced Fire Giant intel with Sleekness as well, and they're just going to utilize this minion wave to push in on that right side Phoenix first and foremost, and it's looking good currently for Sleekness. From what we can see, at least.
Yeah.
It's looking pretty good here for Sleekness.
I can assure you it is looking good right now.
All right, just read between the lines, Chad, all right? Come on, guys. Like, what's happening here? But, no, more importantly, we'll get back into game momentarily, but Mifflin, so far from what we can tell, this is starting to line up a little bit more with that Game 3 potential between these two teams.
I think that this enhanced Fire Giant push with the Osiris dead for as long as he is, I think it was like 50 seconds left on the respawn, I think this could be the game-ending push right here. It seems like they're immediately barreling down the right-hand side. That hesitation, gone to the wind. No longer are we waiting for the opportune moment. We're not waiting to go for the most valuable Phoenix. Instead, it's we have an opportunity here, Alan Sleekness, to try and close this one out. If it's through the right Phoenix, so be it. We'll see if the Sharks try and put up a defense there, or they could try and call the bluff, see whether or not Sleekness is actually willing to step into the Titan pit 5 versus 4, or if they're going to try and split all these Phoenixes while the Osiris is respawning.
And they do know, at least if he was able to communicate anything to his team, I'm fairly certain that he would have seen that Raijin expending the Taiko drums to basically ensure that there was going to be confirmation there for Sleekness. So Nehu not having that Raijin ultimate available could be a prime time here for Tiburones to strike back. But right now it's going to be Oceans going real deep with that Winds of Shamash.
Where'd it go?
Phoenix melted. Belugan looking to be melted as well. Doom-Man Bro just critting for his life right now. And that's pretty much the right Phoenix defense all but gone here for Tiburones. They're trying to buy time for Heat to respawn, but they're going to have to wait a good amount, about 30 seconds left or so on this Osiris respawn now, as left side Phoenix will wind up falling. Oni Fury Waves. Have to remember Sleekness collected that Oni before taking that Enhanced Fire Giant. Now it's going to be Oceans charging in yet again with that Hero's Leap. Dark Portal is good for the time being. Eagles rally even further into the backside, but Spring takes out Nehu.
Oceans falls down low as well. Spreen starting to work his way forward. Dooman Bro finds Blugan in the back, and it's Chronic who gets credit for Renjaru.
By the way, Renjaru basically in the fountain. He's going to be killed still by Chronic, just chasing him out, no questions asked. 3 Phoenixes down, only Spreen, Cope Baby, and Heat left to try and defend, and that's about 50 seconds, basically a minute out on your carries. That's a lot of damage to be missing out on. And I would say that the members from Sleekness, they are definitely topped up enough to just keep charging forward. Ocean's going to leap in one more time. Winds of Shamash back up off cooldown. Cope Baby getting eviscerated here, but he's still alive. And now it's going to be Heat, Lord of the Afterlife back, but the Fire Minion waves are starting to add up, and this could just be Doom-Man Bro's time to shine because Oath, he's taken out Heat, and now it's a full collapse onto the Titan.
And the Titan burns down quickly. Taco, gotta think that they could have done that a little bit sooner. They like to play with their food here at the North American SCC. They want to top up their kill count a little bit towards the end of this match. Sleekness find themselves in a Game 3 situation up against the Sharks. Everything on the line. I couldn't be more excited.
And this is tough stuff right now for Tiburones, I would say, Mifflin, because you have to remember they're looking for their first set win here. But we'll break down all the action that just took place in game number 2 and see what game 3 entails between these two teams. So make sure you guys stay tuned. We'll be right back after this quick break. Welcome back, Smite fans, to the Smite Challenger Circuit. We've seen a pretty exciting set so far between Tiburones and Sleekness, punches being exchanged from both directions, and now we find ourselves heading into Game 3 relatively soon. But first, a little bit of a breakdown, still joined by Mifflin here for this set. And Mifflin, from what you could tell, Sleekness definitely set themselves up for a nice win here in Game 2.
Yeah, that was a little bit of jungle ADC diff, I'd say, right? I mean, it's reflected in the slash lines pretty handily. Oath, maybe in particular, the more impressive of the two performances because he was legitimately just diving the backline and having a field day. It felt like no one was really able to deal with this Erlang Shen in the late game, which is not exactly where Erlang Shen shines generally, but somehow Oath able to pull that one through. Blugan, on the other hand, pretty quiet performance from him. You highlighted inside of the team fights, it was Oceans creating a lot of havoc for this Camazotz. Every time he blink in, try to get something rolling, immediately drop kicked into a wall, or maybe feared away from by Nehu, or disarmed by Chronic. It just felt like he really wasn't able to perform on this Camazotz pick, and even once he was using that bat out of hell, it was always to escape. 10% HP, run away.
And this kind of stems back to that brief discussion that we had even over in Game 1, where we know that Tiburones, they definitely have some favoritisms towards this Camazotz. At least Blugan definitely has some favoritisms towards this Camazotz, but not having that Morrigan seemed to be a real game changer as far as how effective the Camazotz actually was, because like you just said, the drop kicks, the 9 turns blessings, even the pin-ins, it just, as well as that Erlang Shen knockup, can't factor that out either. Even Izanami has the Dark Portal for a silence. There was just so much counter initiation that really stopped that Camazotz from shining. And now for Game 3, wouldn't be surprised if Blugan actually winds up straying away from that Camazotz, or it could be the return of the Morrigan here, as Tiburones will be in that first pick position, and with Sleekness now in that second pick position, might have to resort back to banning out that Raijin, although it seems as though they'd rather keep their eyes turned onto this Morrigan. No intentions of letting Morgan through here for Spreen.
Morgan taken off the table. Umoja, Terra, and Odin on the other side, and Sobek is the second ban for Sleekness so far. Seems like a fair deal frontline focus from both teams. And why not just keep that trend rolling? Osiris, the third and last ban for Sleekness, and the last ban of the first phase of bans. Now, what does that leave on the table? Probably the best in-slot mage in the game. Yeah, Tiamat. Might as well take that one. I can't argue with that pick whatsoever. The Sharks find themselves a great plug-and-play god. Good artillery damage, decent CC, good utility, can be a frontliner thanks to some of that built-in defense from some of the passives there. But Raijin seems to be a huge contention point, not here, or not just here rather, but also at the SPL level. And this is the response I was begging for in Game 2. Gilgamesh, incredibly strong. Let's get that for ourselves.
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised, really, to see the Raijin and the Gilgamesh as the immediate pickups, especially when you know that it's going to be Tiamat. You need something that's aggressive, that has a lot of burst, and I think that Raijin and Gilgamesh can certainly accomplish both of those. But it's Tiburones running it back yet again. Blue again said, hey, you might have shut it down in Game 2, but third time's the charm after all. At least that's what it's going to be the belief here, as that Camazotz does get locked in one more time, and with Kokolin following shortly after. Kokolin, I think, kind of a pseudo-Osiris in a sense, except maybe a little bit better in terms of the team fight potential.
Has good initiation. The blink knockup is just a strong ability. The rage transformation can completely change some of these fights as well. I like Kokolin a lot, and not just for the anti-heal inside of the kit. That's also a facet you have to take a point of. Barbed Spear, going to remove a little bit of the healing from anyone it makes contact with. That said, this Camazotz jungle, man. I just like a little bit of CC, just a
lay it on me,
little bit of
just
CC out of the jungle. I just feel like there's so many better picks right now. I mean, if you want raw damage output, why not just go towards like the Scream special? If we're talking about it, might as well just play like Bastet. She hits harder, she hits faster, she's safer. She's got a range CC. She's actually got a little bit of CC. It's just the Vampiric Bat's slow for the Camazotz so forward, and we saw what happens when Camazotz doesn't hit the ground running in Game 2. You sit at like a 2-8 slash line and don't get involved. It's wild to me that they take it so early on in the draft, 3 games in a row.
Well, Sleekness seem as though they want to make sure that he runs it back with the 2-8 slash line, because that Cupid being added to the mix now, Fields of Love, definitely going to be problematic. We saw how rapidly Sleekness were to respond towards a lot of those Camazotz initiations in Game 2. Danzaburu and Artio joining the mix here, though, for Tiburones and Mifflin. You're talking about the lack of CC Do you think that Danza and Ardio are enough to kind of close that one a little bit better?
So we've got a conditional taunt from Danzaburo.
Yes.
And we've got a single target stun from Danzaburo. And then you've got Ardio, who is legitimately a very good CC core. Has a great cripple, has a good stun, can also root max range, brings a little bit of healing to your team fight, but maybe not as consistent or large AoE as you'd like as like the sole form of consistent CC on your team. Generally, your engage on the side of the Sharks is going to look like blink in from Kakullen into a knock-up into Ardio trying to isolate a single target and have Tiamat and Danzaburo shred them before anyone's able to. Maybe Kamazot's able to dive into the back line and try and focus out this Raijin or maybe even the Cupid, but he's not really going to take the 1v1s up against Gilgamesh or Ling Shen or Nike. Nike has 2 HP bars, or Ling Shen wins the DPS race, and Gilgamesh is the support, so I don't think the jungle is going to be diving him.
And do you expect that this is actually going to be a Nike solo that we're about to get a little preview for? Because Nike solo, not exactly something that initially comes to mind, but this Triple Warrior frontline seems to be something that Sleekness really enjoy working with and trying to work their carries through, and it is, in fact, going to be Chronic on the Nike solo. We've got Jithens on the spectator now. He's going to be filling in for Doug. We told Jithens that he needed to focus and get back to work, so I guess he took that quite literally.
Yeah, has to earn his paycheck here today, so he's going to be spectating
Yeah, these
this
gems
match.
don't come free, man.
Yeah, no shot are you going to get that new Cthulhu skin, the Tier 5 in the game that releases in the most recent patch without working hard for it. Unless you're a fan at home, then you can just buy gems. Jithens, though, has to work here today, and you asked me if I thought it was going to be the Nike solo, and yeah, I do think it's going to be the Nike solo, Taco. I bet it is going to be Chronic piloting that
It's not as
god.
much of a cliffhanger here in SCC in comparison to the SPL.
No.
You know, it's just we get right into the action here with these Smite Challenger Circuit games. But Chronic on the Nike solo. As far as Nike versus Kakullen is concerned, where are you kind of expecting that matchup to line up?
So pre-5, Nike actually has a pretty decent matchup. The first ability, the Rend, is great poke. It's going to help you out with wave clear as well. So if we do see any solo potential, any 1v1 inside of the solo lane, I'm expecting it to be pre-5. If he's able to utilize that Rage transformation, that's his win con pre-5. And if Chronic just wins the poke war, that's his win con pre-5. But post-5, I don't think either of these guys are dying.
Well, Coat Baby thinks he's the carry now in this dual lane as he's going to harass Oceans all the way back to his T1 tower. This Gilgamesh still yet to hit level 2. Doom bro doing his best to try and finish clearing out these creep waves, and Oceans will finally manage to tick in at level 2 here. Renjar and Coat Baby, though, they are relatively pushed up. And if there's one thing that I've definitely noticed between these two teams so far this set, Mifflin, it's that the junglers love making guest appearances in that duo lane around levels 2, 3, and 4.
So let's keep our eyes on Oath, who is starting to work his way over there, Taco. Maybe you've been watching a little bit far ahead. I don't know if your feed's ahead of mine over there, but Oath does seem to be looking towards that duo lane gank. Thinks twice of it, and instead rotates back over towards mid. Blugan, though, just going to go ahead and farm the back cast. There's a little caster's curse there. That's not your fault.
I don't think there's anything wrong with Blue. I mean, that's his side of the map, after all. So I would hope that Bluegan's trying to take advantage of whatever farm is available for him. You know how it goes with junglers. You have a bunch of 7 XP Harpies in a dream scattered throughout the map. And the dream is that you reach a point where your team can carry you.
No, the dream is that I carry the team, okay? The reality is that the team is carrying me. So far, though, Blugan not content with that narrative, wants to get involved early.
And Blugan seems as though Ocean's going to be the mark, but
Good gank.
Oceans is level 3, Doom Bro is level 3. Both escapes readily available for this Tiburones, or excuse me, yeah, for the Sleekness dual lane. And it is going to be an interesting time for Tiburones to try and establish some pressure from that duo side of the map. Renjaru, on the other hand, he's just clearing away. Purple buff invade will be successfully done in Tiburones' favor. And one more time, we're just starting to see some of the pressure aspects come into play.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, though, Oath able to invade the blue and the speed. So that is a nice little two-piece combo for the Sharks, able to strip away a little bit more. I'd say they come out ahead here. Heed, forced to try and pick up some sort of blue buff on the map, is going to look for that solo invade on the opposite side and should be successful in that, able to strip one back for his team. So at the end of the day, maybe it's a one-for-one trade for each of these teams. Sleekness able to pick up one on the right-hand side.
Spreen, all the meanwhile, just trying to do what he can as Tiamat. It's first few minutes of the game, And with junglers not really finding any immediate avenues, it's really just Cope Baby trying to be a nuisance on this RDO. RDO, I think, has a very similar play path to some of the other warrior supports that we tend to see. Normally you would anticipate that it's the Gilgamesh who would get the better end of things, but I have to remember RDO as well, just receiving some... She's got a really interesting kit, Mifflin. I'll put it that way. And
she does.
I think the cripple field is kind of just it's a smaller version of Cupid, but it's not an ultimate, it's an ability, so she's going to have that a little bit more often.
Yeah, Neilma's been played this god to great effect in recent times, and I think that RDO is a little bit slept on inside of the support role. Not only is she affording your team a good deal of damage as you highlight that warrior style, but also decent sustain. The Druid Stance first ability, the Energy Surge, actually heals you for upwards of like 300 if you hit multiple targets inside of the late game, and that's not just for the RDO, it bounces to the entirety of the team.
Cope Baby preemptively preparing for Oath's initiation inwards. It's going to be Renjaro using his escape for the time being. Nice little leaf boy, but it's the Oracle that Oath is after to defend here. For Sleekness, doesn't want to let Tiburones dual lane get a freebie invade off. Blugan also going to make his appearance, just matching the rotation out of this Erlong Shen, as is expected with junglers. And party in the duo lane, but not really a party that either side is particularly invited for. And that's going to be Blugan now getting chased out by Nehu, dropkick into the wall, and Blugan going to meet his maker here as Oath collects first blood of the game. Camazot's just not really respecting some of that burst damage that Sleekness had available.
No, maybe after playing a 35-minute game, thought he still had the bat out of hell available to him, but unfortunately for him is level 4 at the 5-minute mark. So, no ultimate available means no chance he makes it out of that situation alive, falls down for first blood. Oath, credit for the kill, and it goes for an early game build as well. Ticks over to level 5 and immediately decides to utilize it.
Oh, Renjaro nowhere left to run. Doesn't get a chance to even try and channel his escape as Oceans. Goomba stops his noggin with the hero's leap.
Bro, what?
Trying to stay alive. Chronic, though, not able to find the kill just yet. Chronic going to be killed by Spreen with the rotation inwards, and Nehu, fortunately for all of us, manages to kill Heed at the end of it all. But Blugan, he's out for vengeance, and vengeance he will find. However, kills himself in the process, so a double kill will be collected there for Nehu. Blugan probably just didn't think that he needed to use that bat out of hell. Probably assumed that that last tower shot was not going to do as much damage as it did. But what should have been a decent punish against Nehu and Chronic is now essentially turned in favor of Sleekness, and Spreen kind of just left out to dry. I mean, he did his job as far as killing Chronic is concerned, but definitely questionable stuff there from Blugan.
Look, Chronic was like fighting for his life, Taco. Chronic was like, oh god, he's low health. I'm going to kill him with the Ren. I just got to fight out here, but the Rage transformation comes through, and what's Nehu doing the whole time? He's just walking around the jungle, lets him kill his soul leader, but maybe turns it around here. Cope caught out inside of mid.
A nice sustained peel moment, though, and it's not going to buy him all that much more time. 9 turns blessing expended just for good measure here is Oath. Now seeming to get on a little bit of a roll here, Mifflin. 2 kills already to his Erlong Shen. He's got the Ickful online as well, which is going to pair very nicely with that Mannequin Scepter that he has opted for early on. And Cope Baby maybe not recognizing the fact that Nehu would be so eager to drop that Taiko drums on top of his head. And because of that pick in mid, now opens the doorway for Sleekness to look at this purple buff, and we're seeing a lot of action, a lot faster than we did in game 1.
Danzaburo ults in, finds Oath in the back, but a nice Fields of Love separates the fight.
And it's going to be Blugan, though, off the mark with the Vampiric Bats, drop kicked into the wall, punished immediately. However, Spreen does make sure to recover it somewhat, make sure to take out Oath in the process. Does end up trading out his life in the process, though, and procs the heart bump stun onto his support, so now Cope Baby has to die with him. This is certainly a team effort here from Tiburones, but not the one that you would normally intend to go for. They are just unanimously dying together.
9 total kills for Sleekness now across the top, and Chronic trying to reprise his performance from earlier onto Heed. This time, realizes that Nehu doesn't feel like helping him, as Nehu is in mid. That's a little bit of a glib joke there. Heed forced all the way back inside of his tower, and that's 9 kills in 8 minutes for one team, 12 total kills inside of the match, and that's That's a lot. That's a lot of action early on here. Taco, Sleekness, coming out ahead in the kill department pretty handily, finds themselves at a clean 1,600 gold lead. 8.5 minutes into this game. Gotta think they want to keep this pace going. Maybe start to look towards these greater scorpions, start to spawn those POIs on the map to create these situations where they can continue to force fights onto the Sharks.
And don't get me wrong, I love the fact that Cope Baby was trying his absolute darndest to peel for his mid laner via body blocks, but at a certain point you just have to recognize this guy's a gunner, and the fact that he compromised himself attempting to body block a 1 HP Spreen that was already marked with, we're just gonna pass right on over that. Oracles die.
They got it
for the Tiburones. Mission accomplished. Get on out of there, get back to lane, farm it out. But I'm just hoping that the Tiburones don't essentially keep killing themselves in the process of trying to play around each other. You sometimes sacrifices must be made, and you've just got to accept the fact that your teammate's going to die. You have to be really careful, though, with these Cupid Heart Bomb stuns, because if you're going to be losing 1-2 members consecutively as the mid-game approaches, well, then you're starting to look towards losing some of these objectives, like the Pyromancer, like the Gold Fury, and that lead would amount to something much more substantial than just the current 1,700 or so that Sleekness had been able to establish off of these 9 picks alone.
Renjaru falls down quickly to Oath, who is setting up a trap inside of the jungle for about 10 seconds there. Blink in into a knock-up is all it's going to take, and that's one of the downsides of Danzaburo. If you pull ahead, you dominate lane. I'm not going to mince words. It's so hard to play against a Danzaburo who's ahead, but from behind, pretty easy.
Doom Bro, though, he's ready to get frisky with Cope Baby. Fields of Love was going to zone him for the time being, but a couple more in-hands ought to do it. Doom Bro willing to die the tower. In fact, he's got his jungler here joining him right behind, and that's going to be a kill for the Cupid. Oath just helping ensure that Doom Bro could get the job done. Now Cope Baby, he might have been even level with Oceans, but evenness does not continue in this dual lane. Doom Bro now 2 levels ahead of Renjaru, 0-6 collectively between the Tiburones dual lane. So much pressure being steamrolled now, and I think it's only a matter of time, Mifflin, before we start to see some of that trickle-down effect. Ocean's even making a debut now in the solo lane, just pushing Heat back. Won't be able to successfully invade the blue buff just yet. Won't even try, but losing a T1 tower around 10 minutes is so much map pressure for Sleekness, because now, if Tiburones want to show face at that Gold Fury that's due to respawn, they're going to have to do it recognizing that their escape plan, not really much of an escape plan when you have to run all the way to your T2 tower.
Yeah, maybe they want to go to the Pyromancer instead if the Gold Fury is going to be the point of contention for Sleekness. Oh, wait, no, they just did that. Yeah,
that was Tiburones.
I
was talking about Tiburones.
Oh, yeah, no, okay.
And their escape plan.
Yeah, no, they don't have one. They don't have one. They don't have one anymore.
That's gone.
Maybe the response would have been the Pyromancer.
Pyromancer's gone, too.
Yeah, well, that's,
like
now they're both gone.
Yeah, you're just
yeah, you see?
10 steps ahead.
Yeah, I set it up, so I was like, the Tiburones are going to do the Pyromancer while Sleekness does the Gold Fury.
Yeah.
But Sleekness did the Pyromancer,
okay,
so the Tiburones can't.
Yeah, Oath is doing some things to Bluegan right now, but he's going to get Danzaburo ulted in the process, and Bluegan, bad out of hell, finally gets him another kill netted, but now it's going to be Sleekness trying to re-engage Tiburones on the escape path. Renjaru without that ultimate, kind of just a sitting duck here. Oceans finds the dropkick into the wall, getting that Gilgamesh damage off as best as he can. But a nice Intoxicate taunt in. Doom Bro, on the other hand, will punish Bluegan for not having that Battle Hell available. Wants this red buff now. Instead, he's just going to keep chunking down onto Cope Baby, and Spreen finally managed to make the rotation over, but it's too little too late. Cope Baby could very well die.
Kobe able to make his way out of there. The charged bow does not proc onto him, so 37 HP is 36 more than you need inside of that engagement. Sleekness, though, are the beneficiaries of all this pressure, finding themselves 3,000 up at the 12.5-minute mark, and get Oracle Vision for themselves. Got to think, once Oceans is able to make his way back towards base, get back to full HP, it's going to be a very quick rotation over towards this Gold Fury. And the Sharks, well, their team fight is not awful. They are very far behind. 2 levels inside of ADC, a level in the jungle. It's not exactly ideal situations, and already Sleekness looking to push that advantage.
Yeah, this has got to be a Gold Fury here for Sleekness. Chronic's already invested the time to rotate. May as well utilize that solo laner advantage, because keep in mind, look at the other side of the map. It's Tiburones, jungle, and solo. So it would have been a 3v5 at best there for Tiburones had they chosen to try and contest that Gold Fury. The lead just continuing to open up largely the experience gaps. I want to take note of here. Gold starting to get a little bit more significant as well, though. 3,100 is certainly felt at the 13.5-minute mark.
dead.
And Renjaro, he's got the Rocket Raccoon, but he's going to get slammed by Oath and Oceans. Good body blocks from the frontliners of Sleekness. And that's just going to add another kill column measure for Doom to benefit off of. Draugr, not even being looked at by either side, really. It's just been all about the brawling so far. I could care less about those tower mitigations.
Yeah, who needs them? We're not sieging towers right now, either team, so
We're just sieging
leave it
heads.
up. Yeah, we're taking kills right now.
Taking
13
lives.
in as many minutes. Sleekness about to fall behind that threshold. Need to find one more kill in the next 60 seconds if they want to keep that one up. I'm just kidding. Having a little bit of fun here. 17 kills total at 14 minutes. This is some quality North American SCC.
Listen, this is Nehu trying to do it alone. Okay, he's got to hit level 20 now before the timer. He's already level 15, and we're at 14 minutes.
Okay.
So it's do or die essentially for Nehu. Spreen gonna get spotted out. 9 turns blessing in. A nice thunderclap in.
think this guy's
Fields of
dead.
Love just to cut him off even further still, and it is straight up kill thresholds met here. Nehu gonna take down Spreen
One
in the
more.
process. Cope Baby, 1 HP and a dream just about. Red buff will fall as well in favor of Sleekness, but Blugan doing what he can to stay alive. T1 Tower, on the other hand, not so much.
No, that's going to fall down expeditiously, and it does. Sleekness picked that one up in mid, and Tier 2 Tower, I guess you might as well. Dude Man Bro sustaining up Oceans could keep the pressure on, especially considering the Sharks have essentially scattered.
And that's going to be Oceans taking up this T2 tower for the time being, but a nice slow applied from that Sentinel of Zeus. Blugan down to 1 HP, and he's probably not even sure what did all that damage to him. Heat, on the other hand, trying to frontline best he can, but Doom Ambro is so far out in front right now. He is just shredding everybody with these Cupid autos, and just in case he can't get the job done, he's got this boosted Raijin right behind him. The Soul Reaver and Divine Ruin putting in work here. That little bit of sustain you were talking about from the RDO, pretty much a non-factor because of that early anti-heal rush and Cope already being behind.
Yeah, that is a tough spot to find yourself in on the side of the Sharks. We are approaching a pretty wild gold lead. Was at 6,500 in favor of Sleekness, and Pyromancer are going to be spawning up very shortly. Got to think that's where they're headed as well. These neutral objectives get burned pretty fast by Oath if he's there. Ikavale immediately into the Toxic Blade, and what I can only assume is going to be a kin size in that third slot. It means that maybe not objective focused in the build so much, but certainly plenty of damage.
And I really do hate to be the bearer of bad news here, Myth.
Well, then don't do it.
But as far as the
You're doing it
Tiburones are
anyway.
concerned, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just another nail in the coffin there.
Was that what?
That's what
I
that
thought
sound
you
was.
spit.
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
All
I
right,
mean-
that's a.
That'd be a
Another nail
little
in
too
the coffin.
disrespectful, man. I mean, if anybody's spitting here, it's Blugan, okay? He keeps trying to spit these bats out at people, and nobody cares right now from
No.
Sleekness either. It's just this Camazotz, largely, I don't want to call him a non-factor, but I really
But you
do
just
think
did,
that
kinda.
this is the first time that we're really seeing Sleekness be super successful with those dual lane early ganks because, again, game 1,
No way.
game 2, we saw them making the attempts, but this is the first time Oath has really been able to break open the lead here. He's
Good
going to
Lord.
try to be a front laner, but there's no such thing. Kukulin, basically not even in this game. Sleekness dismantling Heat before he even has a chance to contest. The only thing he could do is just call out to the rest of his team, hey, listen, guys, Fire Giant, that's theirs. They get that now. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Pyromancer, sure, why not? Renjaro, on the other hand, trying to do his best to see if he can take out this T2 tower, but problem Mifflin, they're just so far behind the itemization they have available. Not enough, really, to try and push out these objectives in response. So Renjaro does get a chance to proxy farm, but not sold that those minion waves alone are going to be enough to make up for it. Meanwhile, Sleekness, 5 members strong, they'll actually take the T2 tower in solo. Only 1 tower left standing, and then it's all about the Phoenixes. And with the way that this one's ending up, Miff, it's starting to look as though Sleekness might be shutting down Tiburones' dreams of getting their first win in the standings.
So we went from like a 32-minute game to a 40-minute game to what could potentially be a sub-20-minute one if Sleekness are able to maintain this
This
pace
doesn't
here.
happen a lot, though, with these kinds of sets, I feel, because I think, I don't want to call it impatience, but in a way, you can just tell, at least from the side of Tiburones, for example, just look at how Blugan played that level 4 on the Camazotz. He was still playing as if he was in a 30-minute game.
He thought he was a level 26-item Camazotz.
And I
saw
think
it.
it's easy, at this level especially, for players to get kind of distracted by the fact you can start to see a little bit more of that player fatigue, because I think both of these guys, or both of these teams, individually speaking, some ranked demons that we're looking at here in the
want to
Spike
call out some
Challenger
names?
circuit.
Who are the ranked demons here?
I'd say honestly, all of these
All
guys,
of them.
all of them play, man. They all play enough that they could all be. It's just it really does wear down on you going back and forth, especially in this like competitive environment, because one mistake is really all it takes for everything to come crumbling underneath you. And I think Blugan certainly experiencing some of the repercussions of getting picked earlier on against a triple warrior frontline yet again.
Yeah, and going towards that Camazotz for the third time so far. Game 1 went very well for him. Game 2, not so much. And Game 3 seems to be a repeat of the second verse. Sleekness now grouped up as 5 with Fire Giant on all 5, trying to approach their first Phoenix of this game. But it's a slow approach, maybe hanging back a little bit too far, hoping that someone will step in, and someone does. It's Heed up first.
And he could be the first to die on this matter of fact, because it's going to be Chronic jumping in with that Sentinel Azus. Blugan forced out of the Bat Hat of Hell already, so now it's going to be Sleekness trying to get some damage done against this Phoenix. So far, so good, though, for Tiburones in terms of base defense. Spring going to be able to put in enough to dissuade Sleekness from wanting to keep charging inwards, and a lot of gold in favor of Sleekness, though, just off of collecting all the T2 towers that were left standing on the map here, Mifflin. And 3-level leads starting to break out here. Ocean's going to jump in. Blugan, keep in mind, doesn't have that Bat of Hell any longer. He's just a sitting duck waiting to be killed. And Chronic, sure enough, will finally get his first kill of the game.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to Chronic, indeed. But more importantly, 4v5, Blugan out just long enough that this left side Phoenix Siege seeming pretty feasible now for Sleekness.
Oath in the mid as well, trying to take out that Phoenix, is able to pull the attention of both Kakullen and Artio, and with that diverted attention, the rest of Sleekness going to go ahead and work their way in on the left, but it is a slow siege so far. Phoenix just hovering around that 50% mark.
It is only 20 minutes, approaching the 21-minute mark, but the left side Phoenix will finally end up falling here. Coat Baby going to charge in. Ocean incredibly low. Doomambro incredibly low, but Doomambro able to escape for the time being. It's Heed still trying to give chase. Keep in mind, though, Doomambro has his team on the backup. It's going to be a full-on collapse here, as Oath will take out Heed in the process, punishing him. A nice double kill now being collected for Oath and Nehu, as only Blugan is left standing. Sentinel Azus coming back up off cooldown in time for Chronic to really intervene with the rest of that counter initiation out of Tiburones. And the base not fully exposed just yet without Doomambro. Might be a little unrealistic to look for a game in outright, but actually cancel that. Have to remember, Blugan is only level 15, and Nehu perfectly topped up in the HP department, but Sleekness, they'll reconsider. They'll take the mid Phoenix as their prize, and they'll accept Blugan not even bothering with trying to defend.
I don't think he could have defended that Phoenix
there's no
at all.
chance.
How does Nehu end up after a cluster of a team fight like that with 100% HP? I'm not sure that he sustained it back up. I'm pretty sure he was just there the entire time. Tiburones with a little bit questionable target selection does lose them out on the team fight. And worth keeping track of for the fans at home. We're at 21 kills for Sleekness and 21 minutes, but now taking over to 22. Sleekness.
They've got 60
overdue.
seconds.
They're overdue to pick up a kill here.
I'm going to be real disappointed if we don't see something.
I think they have
in
to
the
go to
next
Fire
60
Giant.
before.
How are they going to do it, Taco?
It's the only option. They have to go to Fire Giant. I mean, look at
Maybe
Blugan.
Tiburones steps up to Fire Giant.
Oath trying to hunt out Blugan for the time being.
He knows he
Pyromancer
needs
is going to respawn. Blugan, he's doing his best to stay hidden here with Heed. Doesn't seem as though Tiburones really want to try and tango at this Fire Giant, and for good reason, Mifflin. This is definitely a runaway train now for Sleekness. They are so far ahead with their front line alone, and then you factor in the carries right behind that. I mean, 2-level lead for Raijin, 3-level lead, excuse me, for Doomambro. Upgrades already readily available for both this Raijin and the Cupid. and Wind Demon not even getting a chance to be finished off just yet by Renjaru. I'm not sure it'll even make that much of a difference once it is. Fire Giant melted, Sleekness, now only one lane left. And you know what, Mifflin, they've just disappointed both of us. There's no kill.
No, maybe they'll be able to close it up here. That's going to come down to another team fight. Renjaru on the left-hand side tries again to take out that Tier 2 tower, and again, Fire Giant dropped at the exact same time, so Renjaru heads back to base to try and put up yet another defense on this last standing Phoenix for the Sharks here. But Sleekness, it worked for him last time. Let's hang like a block back from the Phoenix itself, and somebody's going to walk into us. Surely Heed does not make the same mistake twice, and instead says, all right, guys, you actually have to siege us this time.
And Cope Baby, he's trying to do his best to prevent his jungler from dying outright here. Oath looking for Bluegan on the backside. It's going to be Oceans blinking it as well, just harassing this Tiamat with the Winds of Shamash. Sentinel of Zeus slowing everybody else in the process. Now a Fields of Blood to keep everybody locked down. Who cares about the right side Phoenix? Sleekness, they just want the kills. Nehu going to take down Cope Baby. Why not get another one while you're at it? Instead, just barely Heed going to manage to escape for the time being. Still Spreen, Cope Baby, they're out of the fight. Heed basically out of the fight too. Nehu going to charge right on top of that Titan, and Oath will finally kill Heed. Nehu going to take out Renjaru. He's sick of that Rocket Raccoon, and Bluegan just has to stand and watch as that Titan falls in defeat. Really back and forth, kind of both these teams, Mifflin, for the first two games, but this game 3 was definitely lined up to be all in Sleekness' favor.
25 kills in 24 minutes, Taco.
Proud of
That's
them.
how that one
Proud of them.
ends out there. And those are some of the hardest games to analyze, because it's just a lot of early game aggression that never really stopped. I feel like I kind of owe you a favor after the one. You had to do all that chair 1. You get to call so many of those team fights, and really, I don't think I even got a word in edgewise.
Hey, Mifflin, sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But on the bright side here, we know exactly who's going to be moving on up in the standings. And
is that so?
I mean, Tiburones, better luck next time. But, hey, that was definitely, I think, a well-executed Game 3 out of Sleekness. They did everything they needed to and some. And I think that at this level of play, Mifflin, it's just obvious. The competition can definitely match some of the top end at times as far as punishment is concerned. But as for the rest of you guys, we'll be right back momentarily. So make sure to stay tuned, and we'll see you guys on the flip side. Welcome back, Smite fans, to the Smite Challenger Circuit and the closure of this set between Tiburones versus Sleekness. Like we were touching on before the break took place, a very nice back and forth action pace between these two teams actually found us heading into a Game 3, but by the end of it all, Mifflin, it was Sleekness who came out on top.
Yeah, if you only caught Game 3, maybe you think that was a pretty one-sided set, but no, that was a 35-minute game into a 40-minute game into a incredibly fast 25-minute game to end this one out, and I think it's pretty clear what happened. Oath starts popping off on the Erlang Shen. Nehu goes untouched essentially throughout that entire game, and Blugan, who played Camazotz 3 games in a row, progressively got worse at the Camazotz, or maybe it was the Sleekness that progressively got better at playing against it.
Seemed a little bit more like the latter than anything else. I think that Blugan just really did not have any sort of opportunities to try and be aggressive or initiate, and I think that that's also one of the prime reasons why Camazotz tends to be reserved a little bit more for later on in the drafts. But with all that being said and done, Sleekness now sitting in that third position. As you can tell, Winter Dogs, Herculean Hooves still all tied up there for first place. But Sleekness got to be feeling pretty nice now with that 2-2 record standing, because Tiburones, not only are they stuck at the bottom now, but Sturdy Artisans have got their work cut out for them if they want to manage to climb back out on top and tie things up with Sleekness yet again. So far, North America Challenger Circuit looking nice and even. You mentioned it earlier as well. They're all tied up now as well with the European standings, technically speaking.
Yeah, that's exactly how it looks over there.
Yeah, speaking of Europe, for today, we already saw Tiburones versus Sleekness, but tomorrow we're going to be embarking back into the world of EU Challenger Circuit with Elysium versus Team Joystick. Those two teams are neck and neck right now, so would definitely be a fun set. Don't want to miss out on that. And of course, like always, these Challenger Circuit sets, Mifflin, they're leading up for the real...
The appetizer.
Yeah, they're nice appetizer there. Everybody likes a good appy.
Meaty appetizer, to be sure, but an appetizer nonetheless.
Yeah, and the appetizer leading into today's main entree is actually going to be the Valkyries versus Scarabs game that we're going to be seeing up first. And after that, Olympus Bolts versus Atlantis Leviathans. But it gets even better still, because that Bolts Levi set is actually going to be taking place here in studio. So make sure that you definitely don't miss out on that second set of the day. Sure to see some sparks fly. A lot on the line as well for that playoff seeding. And Mifflin, what are some of your thoughts looking at that inland studio?
I'm excited for it. All you keen-eyed fans at home are going to want to keep your eyes peeled, because every time Barracuda is in the studio, you got to believe that his bread's going to be following him. And sometimes he brings in 1 shaker cup, sometimes he brings in 2. I've seen him bring in 3.
Don't forget the bananas.
Yeah, sometimes he's bringing bananas. Dude just brings his pantry. Honestly, we should just open up one of the cabinets there for him and let him stock up.
Well, we'll see what Barra and the rest of these teams have in store for us here today. Like I mentioned, it is going to be the Valkyries up against the Scarabs, starting things off with SPL. And, of course, SPL will begin momentarily. So make sure you guys stay tuned, and we'll see you all right back here for all the action momentarily.